How's it going, everybody? It is Matty here with week 24 of the H.A.M Radio Podcast.
And it is me, the King Kangaroo's Lone Vault Wanderer.
I forgot my thing. Yeah, I love story-driven hentai. Wow, yeah. I love that stuff. All right. And we have a very special guest joining us this week.
Hi. I am Wei K. Savage, and I'm the director of Fallout Lanius, and I'm also here to chat about a new video game TV series and toy line, but mainly Fallout Lanius. That's who I am. Very excited to be here, and thanks so much, Lone and Maddie, for having me on. It's really cool to be here.
Of course. I said the Lone as a joke. I find it funny that you did a fan film on Lanius, but your last name's Savage. I thought that was a cool connection.
It's a great surname. I'm very proud of it.
Yeah.
Before we get into anything, we'd like to give a couple of updates. Obviously, we have our shirts and Sugar Bomb link down below. A new thing that we also have added down below that I have stupidly forgotten to add for a while now are timestamps. So if you guys want to go listen to certain sections of this podcast for whatever reason, then you now have that option again. I do apologize for getting to add that for a while. It's only recently we started getting asked about that again. So they're back. They're down below. And anyways, other than that, we like to get guests on the podcast as much as we can, usually fans. And the way to do that is to answer a question tweeting at any of us with the hashtag H.A.M Radio Time with your answer to this following question, which is, what is your favorite Fallout fan project? I figured that would be a good one for this week's guest.
Nice, Matty.
Yeah, right? So
of course your answer has to be Fallout
Lanius.
Yeah.
That's my choice.
But yeah, I figured that was a good one for this week. And so, yeah, get the tweeting, and hopefully we'll see you at some point soon. Anyways, let's dive in. This week is all Fallout 4. We got a couple of news bits because this week was GamesCom, and we got a bit of interesting info. Now, this piece of news is happening, or it did happen, rather, a little bit before GamesCom, and it's that Fallout 4's development is nearly complete. Pete Hines has stated that Bethesda has finished adding stuff to the game and are now polishing / bug stomping Fallout 4. And this was stated like 3 months before the game even launches, so I'm pretty stoked about this, to be honest.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Like, to think it's been that long, what is it, 4 or 5 years now, and they're like, yeah, it's done, guys. Like, usually people will developers will announce a game when it's not technically complete, but Bethesda
about a year out.
They kept saying, like Todd Howard kept reiterating, we want everything to be there, and they weren't lying about that. Mm-hmm. So it's good to know that. I was actually kind of hoping that they released the game earlier because they're like, yeah, it's pretty much finished. I'm like, all right, give me the game now.
that window is pretty crazy, isn't it? That 5-month window, like that's unheard of today. And I thought that was pretty fantastic considering the wait for the announcement alone, for them to be like, oh yeah, it's coming out this year, that's just insane. So it's very, very cool. As a fan, it makes me pretty excited.
It was such a fitting way to end the E3 conference where they're like, we know you want to play it soon, so it's coming out in November. I think everyone just lost their mind.
I'll never forget that, dude, when he was like, and we don't want you to wait too much longer. I was like, I screamed, I'm like, release date, here we go. Just in my room by myself. But
Maddie's Fallout 4 reaction. It's great.
In terms of the development of this game, I mean, Lone, you kind of already pointed out, but I just think it's crazy that, like, 6 months before this, or, a couple of months before this, whatever, before June, we'll say, it was just like a myth. This game was essentially a myth. Yeah. We all thought it was coming, but we never had any confirmation. And then here we are a couple months down the line in August, and it's almost a few months away. Isn't it such like a weird, crazy transition from going to this game may never happen into holy shit, this game's happening to holy crap, this game is coming out very, very soon?
It's such a surreal feeling, because we were following it for so long, and to think that they had started planning the game as soon as Fallout 3 was released. I believe that's what they said.
Yeah, 2009.
Yeah, fuck that. Like, it seems so long ago. And it
is a long time ago.
Yeah. And we had no idea about this game, and they just flooded us. Like, we just got this. It's not necessarily an overload of information. It technically is, but it was a great thing. Mm-hmm. They're like, yeah.
We needed that.
We needed that. And then all of that gameplay, all of that stuff, and to think that the game is almost finished is really good to hear.
Mm-hmm. It's pretty huge to go from the trailer. Like, it was an interesting launch strategy because the trailer, like, I'm a bit of a I was a bit of a contrarian and a bit skeptical after the trailer, which was kind of like visually and conceptually really nice, but I was like a bit concerned of modeling and some of the texturing and stuff. Again, it's YouTube, and YouTube is so heavily
you knew that though. That's
compressed.
The good part. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. It's like, oh, look, it's YouTube. It's really compressed. You're not seeing everything. There's not much visual fidelity.
That's right.
But then when we went from that to like, I was kind of like skeptical, going, oh, geez, I'm not sure how the movement works and this, dialogue and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And then they did that big presentation, which went for so long and showed you so much, and then revealed all these new game features. Yeah. And I was just kind of going, oh, this is really good, and like, and I loved the kind of voiced protagonist, and I thought the writing was nice, and Brian's voice performance was really nice and nuanced and stripped back. So, it was just like so huge. Yeah. And then at the end of it, they say, oh, yeah, it's coming out in like 5 months.
Yeah. Unreal.
So it's huge.
And it's crazy to think until today, we still haven't seen, like, aside from that uncompressed Fallout 4 trailer video, we still haven't seen gameplay of the game in pure HD that is not streamed footage. Because even if today you go on Bethesda's YouTube channel and you look at the gameplay exploration video, if you go 1080p and full screen, it's blurry as fuck. Because I still think it's a compressed video, and it's a stream. I think that's still the stream video. If not, correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah. But it's still very, very blurry, and we haven't seen to this day, like, for example, if you had a really good gaming PC rig, and seeing what the game looks like that. And that's what I'm really excited for, because I'm thinking, I'm not too sure if I'm right on this, but every gameplay that we've seen today has either been Xbox One or like medium settings on PC. I don't think we've seen anything real high quality on PC.
Yeah, I don't know if we've seen max settings on PC, because I know Bethesda said they don't want to like do what a lot of companies do with the graphics and like ultra settings on the strongest PC imaginable, so it looks incredible. I know that we've seen the control scheme for the Xbox the whole time, so I mean it could be on PC, but it also could be on the Xbox One. I think they said that the Bethesda E3 conference Fallout 4 stuff was on an Xbox One. I could be wrong. This is just
they definitely did have the Xbox One footage in the Microsoft conference, and that looked like there was no difference to the other one, in my opinion. So
that's why I think they did, because I recall a response on Twitter saying something along those lines, but I could be wrong. But I think it was. But regardless, the game looks great.
Exciting times.
Yeah, man.
Does look really cool. Does look, and I mean it. So long as look, I think it's all going to come together. I think the quality writing and performance is like a big factor for me, coming from a narrative point of view.
Of course.
Yep. And look, that whole setup, pre-war, I think is really cool. And it's just a really exciting time to be a Fallout fan. Yeah. Even if you're an old guy like I am, it's really cool. And I think they're going to do a great job. And I think like from a marketing exercise and from a audience relationship exercise, it's pretty ridiculous.
It's going to teach a lot of companies some things, I think.
Yeah, I think so, absolutely. That short window and just kind of giving people a lot of content very late in the game, so to speak, rather than doing drifts and drabs over years. Yeah. And even what you guys were saying then about showing the game only in kind of medium settings, not having the same kind of issue, like some of the issues like the Witcher 3 guys got, where they showed all their stuff
as well.
I mean, Ubisoft, you can kind of write Ubisoft off, because they have a lot of problematic marketing kind of ideas and how they treat their audiences, because they know their audiences are going to buy in year in, year out.
That's right.
But and the Witcher 3 guys have made up for it tenfold. Like their relationship with their audience is pretty incredible.
It is.
But but maybe the question is like, maybe we don't show everything super duper. We just show it looking pretty good, and so you got a realistic expectation of the graphics. And I mean, anything that's more genuine, I think, and authentic to an audience and treats your audience with a lot more respect is just going to make you way more money, I think.
Yeah, it does.
And it's all about
look at Fallout Shelter.
Look at Fallout. I still haven't played it yet. 4 days. 4 fucking days, man.
Yep.
Anyway, that's me.
It crashes on me all the time.
I hope it doesn't on me. Excellent.
Yes.
Love it.
So moving on to the next bit of news, the rest of this does come out from GamesCom. This is all current news now. Bethesda confirms that Fallout 4 will not have a level cap and that the game will be playable after the main story is complete. How about that?
Yeah.
How about that?
Thank Christ.
Yeah, let's talk about the easy stuff first. The being able to play after the main story, because I feel like this level cap thing will be a huge discussion. So we'll save that for after. Let's talk about this main story thing. We saw it coming. Like you make a DLC that lets you continue playing the game afterwards. I think Bethesda learned their lesson. They just needed to confirm it so that everyone knew that wasn't going to be the same mistake made twice. New Vegas.
Yeah, well, I think I don't mind it in New Vegas because of the particular narrative, but I think if you do the DLCs in Vegas, it's a bit it's a bit troubling because you have to kind of choose the right save, so you can do all the stuff kind of in the middle and then finish up at Hoover Dam. So, and it's all tied into the whole narrative. The DLCs are kind of off to the side, and then you come back into the Mojave, and then you have to continue the narrative. So, I think there's something to be said there that. Leaving it open is the best way to go. Yep. Obviously, you're not kind of killing your protagonist at the end or anything silly like that.
Yeah.
So,
and I think the key, in my opinion, is that not necessarily, we can just play the game and finish side quests after the main story. I think that's the obvious point. But to me, I want to see a different wasteland after the events that take place in the main storyline. Yeah, you know what I mean? Cool. Like, I want our choices and our actions to have huge ramifications in either direction, whether it's because we've been evil and the wasteland's just gone to shit, or whether we've been good and now there are thriving settlements and there's water, or whatever the story might be. I want those kind of implications, and not just, I'm just strolling through this empty wasteland that seems the same before the main story but probably shouldn't be because it was a pretty big storyline. Whatever it might be, that's pretty much what I want to see.
Because I think it would be cool, like, you just take the easy one, for example, Fallout 3. I'm not really necessarily spoiling anything, because if you're listening to this podcast, you should have beaten Fallout 3. But, with Project Purity, at the end, let's say you successfully initiate Project Purity on stuff, and the wasteland is, quote, safe, capital wasteland specifically. It'd be cool if, like, you wake up after Broken Steel, you go out into the wasteland, you just, like, you see, like, improved life somehow. That would be cool to see.
And even if you decided to insert the FEV into the water supply, to be honest, you should see less super mutants. You should see less ghouls.
That's right.
And the fact that we didn't, that did not make sense. Yeah. And I understand that it's always the good choice, which is, canon.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, I understand how hard it might be to say, all right, for every different permutation of choice in the main storyline, this is how the wasteland's going to be affected thereafter. But if you execute that really well, then I think that makes for an even better game in terms of longevity and replayability. So yeah.
I mean,
Sorry. I mean, I was just going to say anything that reflects the characters, the player's choice is always really cool, especially if you visually see it. So it'd be nice to actually have a lot more of that in Fallout 4. Again, it's probably really expensive and time consuming to do, to kind of like change everything over. But it'll be exciting to see if that actually happens. And because even like something really simple, like we're all kind of off topic, but like cleaning out a village in Witcher 3 and then having everyone return to it is kind of a nice feeling. There's kind of a weird emotional feedback on that,
No, definitely right.
There's a gameplay feedback, so it'd be kind of cool to see that happening in Fallout 4. If you clear a bunch of ghouls from a rest stop or whatever, or a small town, then you have a bunch of traders and stuff come in and build the town up again, and that seems to be a theme, especially with building your own buildings and all that kind of thing.
That's right. And it doesn't have to be anything drastic. Like even in New Vegas, if you chose to support Kaisar's Legion, right? It could be as simple as having Kaisar's Legion just surrounding the wasteland and every settlement and just having killed people. It can be that simple, right? Yep. But at least it reflects the choice that we made to support Kaisar and Lanius and all of that. But the fact that, well, first of all, in New Vegas, you can't even play after the game. But even if you could, I reckon they wouldn't have taken that step because they didn't do that with Fallout 3. Different developers, I know, but even with Obsidian, they had no time to make that game, so there's no way they would have been able to do that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It's going to certainly be interesting to see if any choices carry over. I mean, you think of it this way, you could have, like, obviously these large selection of choices that influence relationships and all that stuff with your characters, but I think what would be cool is if they had, like, these, and they don't obviously tell you, but there's these, like, 5 core choices are the ones that carry over, and, like, you see the effects of, they don't have to make every choice you make in the story have some type of effect, as cool as that would obviously be. But, it would be really neat to see if, like, 5 really big decisions you had to make, like, somehow you see the effects afterwards.
Definitely.
That would be cool.
I agree.
Oh yeah.
As for the other bit of news that they talked about in this tweet that they used, no level cap in Fallout 4. I mean, everyone
this is interesting.
Yeah, let's tackle this from the perspective of a lot of people who are skeptical. A lot of people are afraid that this is going to bring out God mode characters.
No.
Yeah, I'm like, no.
So the way it'll work is obviously there's going to be a set number of perks and ranks within those perks that you can get. Like it's not going to be infinite. Eventually you'll reach a bit of a barrier in that sense, but as you keep leveling up, the enemies are going to be tagged along with you. Like there's no way you're going to be level 100 and killing level 30 Deathclaws, for example. That's not going to happen. And Bethesda's not dumb enough to let that happen. But I think where the beauty of having no level cap is, one, it feels like you are progressing, because in Fallout 3, you reach level 20 and then the DLC brought you to level 30, but then you still feel like you hit this metaphorical barrier and you couldn't progress anymore. But in Fallout 4, that's not going to be the case. And the second point, I think, is that it's going to leave huge scope for having like these crazy quest mods, for example, that you need to be this level 100, for example, to actually be able to play. And you can do that now because there is no cap in that sense. Mm-hmm. And even with DLC, you could have like certain quests cut off unless you're level 60, which is some crazy level. But those that are able to stick it out and get to level 60 and play that quest, they'll be better off for that. And I think that's the true scope of a no level cap. It's not just hitting this barrier. It's able to play the game, and the enemies will come along with you. That's a guaranteed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the one kind of criticism, it's not so much a criticism as it is a balancing issue, is that because the Bethesda guys are really obsessive about player choice and having a very flat, approachable, accessible kind of world, that I guess is that you don't want to kind of end up being like, I think maybe Skyrim had it, where you're kind of like the head of every guild and every organization, as well as like, and some of them, I think there was, I can't think of the example, but there's a couple of like elements where you could cross. Oh no, you became the head of the Mages Guild, but then you could be the head of the
thieves and
and then you got to rob yourself. Yeah, and then there's a mission where you have to rob the head, and you're like, oh wait, I just go into my room and just steal my own stuff, then give it to you, and it's a bit of it's a bit of a conflict, and that's down to the fact that they make games that are big and sprawling and just want to give you like a huge toolbox sandbox to play in. And I mean, look, they could go that way with Fallout 4 as well, but I guess it's like depending on the kind of player you are. Like I like kind of like choices and consequences, and even though I hate the idea of having content blocked off from me, you kind of need to take a bit of ownership of your choices you make. And it'd be, I don't mind having a really powerful character, which is nice, so long as there's always balanced enemies. And I guess that the issue can be sometimes is that they have enemies that kind of level with you, that whole level scaling issue, which can be a bit of a bummer sometimes. But I think they're going to look at that differently, because I think there's a bit of conversation about how you can see the level of the enemy you're fighting and that kind of thing. So it's kind of like, hopefully, ideally, if you walk into a Deathclaw nest at level 2, you're going to get wasted.
You get destroyed.
Yeah.
Hey, Maddie, sorry to interrupt, but someone just tweeted out to you, there's a new KOTOR trailer.
I hope that's a joke, right?
I don't think so. Oh. Anyways, that's a sidetrack, but Maddie's
I'm going on Twitter while I'll do favorite game ever. Like, if there's one game I love more than Fallout, that's it.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I love the first KOTOR.
Oh, yep. Favorite game.
But
ever. I'm seeing him tweet at me. Why would he not link me though? Well, all right. I'll look online in a little bit. As for my thoughts on the level cap, a lot of people are, like I said, were concerned about God mode characters and stuff, and I don't think that's necessarily an issue, because people forget that once you assign those special stats, those are permanent, and that then the perks unlock through the special stats. I don't want to say unlock. I really don't know how it works, to tell you the truth, but based off the way Bethesda described it, they unlock based off what you have. So if you have 7 strength, you'll have access to a certain amount of strength perks, compared to if you upped it 1, you'd have access to a couple more because it's strength 8. Now you get what I'm saying.
That's right.
So it's going to be blocked off in that way. We're creating a new character and coming back with now lesser strength and being like, okay, I know what's there in strength, what I need for what I want to get in strength. Yeah. I'm going to up my agility now. That's where it comes from. And people think that, I'm getting a perk every level. That means I'm going to keep leveling up, getting perks, and constantly just fucking just becoming a god. And it's like, that's not really the case, because I'm not going to say you're going to run out of perks, because after you get a certain perk, you can rank up that perk, and that's going to be insane in its own right. But, there's going to come a point where you're going to, I guess, run out of stuff to rank up or some sense. And you're going to have to go make a new character. And, obviously, the higher you level up, you want to become stronger. Who wants to be constantly weaker in things? I think with the level scaling now, it's a good thing. It used to be kind of like a big fear of mine. It still is with the rubber banding system. But, if they're scaling with you, now it'll be like everything will still be a challenge. But I think you'll see with the perk system, the ramifications of your choices.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's what Bethesda is going for. They don't want people just to have general, all-powerful players that, they can pick up any weapon, they can do anything, and they'll be awesome at it. I think they're trying to go for these individualized character styles where if you pick, more intelligence, for example, that's what your character is. They're a very intelligent person that can hack terminals, and do all that smart stuff. If you pick a character that's a smooth talker, and you have high charisma, that's what your character is going to be. So I don't like to use the term pigeonholed, but I think Bethesda is going more for that. Like you can't just become this generalist. You have to specialize somewhere, and you'll reach a point eventually in the game where you might have to start a new character because you've exhausted all you can in the smooth talker character play style. So you want to try a different game where maybe you're a macho man now and you have a high strength. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that's good. I think it'll also give people, if they're going to go to all the work of specializing, and also, having that kind of voice protagonist and giving you a kind of more personal touch, and it's all about that, I think, with Bethesda games, then you're right. If they are going to kind of pigeonhole you a little bit, I think they'll probably kind of try to embrace it a little bit more. Yeah. And I think that'll probably give you, like, if you say, I want to specialize in this kind of character, I want to have a high science character, uses... energy weapons, and he or she's a smooth talker, and then I do a lot of tech stuff in the game, and then you might want to be more of a raider character in another reroll or whatever. So but of course all of this kind of conversation's a bit moot if they throw in respecs or something, and I don't recall there being respecs in the other games, or
not that I'm aware of.
So we should be good.
I like to highlight that guy's a fucking liar, and we look like idiots. Because I fucking looked. Frick.
That's funny.
Anyways, on to the next bit of news. Fallout 4 will have big battles, I say this in quotes, compared to previous Fallout games. GameSpot's Danny O'Dwyer, I love this guy to death. He described a battle during the GamesCom demo he saw. He saw an extended one for like 25 minutes, so I envy the hell out of him.
Wow.
It involved the protagonist, a bunch of raiders, a bunch of ghouls, and the Brotherhood of Steel came in on vertebrates to aid the protagonist. And during this battle, a super mutant, I always say superhuman for some reason, a super mutant behemoth comes in, and the player has to use a fat man while all this other chaos is going on. And he described it as kind of like how Fallout New Vegas was essentially like the end, the Battle of Hoover Dam. You kind of had to like treat it like a play where you had to pretend it was this big climactic epic battle, even though there really wasn't that much NPC on screen and stuff because of technical limitations, where this was an actual big battle that you could see, like it was like incredible. So I think this is huge for Fallout, man. Like big ass battles with multiple factions attacking each other. Like you said, the ghouls were attacking the raiders, and then the Brotherhood of Steel came in and started shooting up the raiders. You were finishing off the ghouls.
Awesome.
Like it's like all these crisscross factions attacking each other and stuff. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, and I think that's the beauty of having more memory and more RAM to work with in video games nowadays. You can have those big climactic battles, which I think New Vegas was trying to strive for, but it missed the mark, obviously because of technical limitations. But even going back to New Vegas, it felt like, it was this big battle, but there was still kind of like, I don't know if you guys remember, like areas on the bridge where like you would reach and you would kill, like there were like 10 enemies there, and then you go to the next area and then more spawn and then more spawn. It wasn't this huge like clusterfuck of just a bunch of enemies and raiders and behemoths that I think Danny O'Dwyer saw in the Fallout 4 thing at Gamescom. So I'm glad that there's going to be something like that, because those big battles, that's the way I see games ending, in a lot of cases anyways, especially like with Fallout. If there are going to be 4 different factions vying for power, and that's the narrative that they're trying to tell, I think there should be, at some point anyways, whether that's at the end or somewhere towards the end, this big battle where a victor emerges or something like that. I think that would be really cool.
I think it sounds really cool. Hopefully, there's a lot of kind of technical elements because I know that the conversation is it being a much better shooter. Now that's a bit tricky for me for my playstyle because I actually don't like playing in first person. I prefer to play third person. So and look, and that's fine. It's because you rely on VATS and you can shoot from the hip and all that kind of stuff anyway. But it'll be interesting to see how that looks and feels in a third person sense. I doubt they'll be doing cover shooting and that kind of thing. Nah. Who knows? But look, I think it sounds kind of cool. My only question with that little bit of information was, is the Brotherhood of Steel, and this is a little off topic, are they going to be goodies again?
I don't know.
Which I found really jarring. I don't like it. So it's my...
on the description of... Okay, well, here's the thing. I'm going to go all over real quickly. Okay, a lot of people think that the Brotherhood of Steel is going to be bad because on a bunch of Fallout toys, yes, you heard that right, toys, they're described as the villains. They're saying, or the villain, they're saying, like, you can collect these people or the villains, like the Brotherhood of Steel. They say something along those lines.
That's interesting.
And so everyone's like, oh, they're the villains, because they're talking about it in toys. I'm like, look, I'm not going to make a video about how toy descriptions confirm Brotherhood of Steel villains. Makes no sense. I don't know if they're going to be good or bad in a sense, but because people think they're bad because in the gameplay trailer we got at the end of E3, you're shooting them the whole time. You're blowing up birds. You're shooting them with rocket launchers. It's crazy. But then in this gameplay demo, as well as QuakeCon, which I believe QuakeCon and GamesCom were the same demo, except GamesCom was extended. But anyways, the Brotherhood of Steel comes in and helps you. So... like I said, going all over the place, you go over to the product details for Fallout 4. They say that you can choose whatever faction you want to join or just go on this quest on your own. So I'm assuming it's a sense of a faction choice. I don't know if they'll be having good intentions or bad intentions because we don't know what Brotherhood of Steel faction this necessarily is. It could be East or Midwest or whatever.
But
what I'm thinking, though,
they could do... choice. They could be good or bad.
I'm thinking, though, with the Brotherhood, they might want to try something different. And this might be a really weird example to bring up, but I don't know if any of you are into the lore of Mortal Kombat. And there is a stage where Raiden was this really good protector of Earth, and then he became kind of neutral. He's like, all right, I'm still protecting Earth, but I want to be a fucktard about it. Like, I'm going to kill whoever tries to kill Earth, and he no longer was this really good, almighty character. He became neutral like that, and I hope something similar happens with Brotherhood of Steel. Like, they could have their intentions, but they could still have moral questionable choices that you may or may not agree with, and if you decide to vibe with them, it's not like there's a clear cut decision if they're good or bad. I think they're going to have some questionable things about them that might sway us to go either way in terms of picking them or not. I don't know.
Well, originally, sorry to interrupt.
No,
originally, they were always techno fanatics.
Yeah.
And they didn't care about people. People didn't matter. They were, a long offshoot. I mean, we're talking the first two games here. A long offshoot of what remained of the U.S. military and the Maxons and that whole lore.
That's right.
And they didn't care about people. They didn't want to make the world a better place. They just wanted to, just take any technology they could and keep it for themselves and archive it, and but they were techno fanatics, and so they weren't really goodies or bad guys. So long as you were forwarding their agenda for technology and being the guys with the biggest guns, the best armor, then you were good with them. So I think I always found that really interesting. I found it super jarring in Fallout 3 that they were kind of I don't know. It's too. Heroes, white knights.
Different.
Simple. It's an overly simplistic term to use the term white knight, but they're very, very proper and moralist and that kind of stuff. And I found that a bit weird. So it could be nice to see them returning to that more, like you said, Lone, neutral kind of verging on antagonistic force.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, while we're not to interrupt you, but like while we're talking lore and stuff, it's kind of interesting that you look at the Commonwealth, which is like a home to post-apocalyptic now technology and stuff, and it makes sense why the Brotherhood of Steel has moved into this territory. So it would kind of be interesting. It would make sense from a perspective of like if they went back to their we only care about technology and advancing ourselves kind of roots. It would make sense in an area like the Commonwealth, especially with like a place like the Institute, all these androids. Like it would make sense for them to want to come in here and harness this technology for themselves.
I'm just hoping generally, though, with the factions is that it's not like, even generally in the game, I don't want clear-cut choices. I don't want, all right, this is the good option or the bad option. I want really difficult, moral-based choices that make you think, and whether that goes into which faction you choose to support or just generally in the game. I want, and just to give a random example, let's say if to support this one village or one faction, it's to the detriment of somebody else that could have really good intentions, but then the one that you support could also have really good intentions. So those morally based questions that really make you think and will make you regret your decision no matter which option you choose. That's kind of what I want to see in Fallout 4. I don't want, all right, I'm going to choose the good option and everything's fine and dandy. I want to say, all right, if I want to choose the Brotherhood of Steel, because of their goal in advancing technology, they decide to fuck over another faction or another group or a settlement or whatever that might have really good technology, and they've decided to go in there and kill all of them to get the tech. Those questions, like, I want to be able to, like, feel in terms of what faction I choose and what choices I make, and for it to affect me and me to feel guilt about it. Even though,
that's right. Even though you thought you were doing the right thing, I think that's kind of cool in games, and it's rare. And again, I'm going to mention Witcher 3 all the time. Witcher 3 does it to you all the time.
That's
it's like,
thinking.
It's like, hey, this is the right decision. Oh, cool. I supported so-and-so group. Oh, and then so-and-so group murdered all these people or something.
Yeah, that's it.
You kind of go, oh, but they were the better option, weren't they? It's like, well, no, everyone's got competing agendas,
that's right.
and if you're the that's a big discussion to have about, like, are you driving the narrative, or are you centered in the narrative, or are you kind of off to the side? And so Geralt is kind of off to the side, and he plays a role, but it's not all about him. And so in Fallout 4, that could be the same thing. You go, oh, well, we'll support the Brotherhood of Steel, but then they're going around wiping out these little smaller communities and stealing their stuff. And so you kind of go, oh God, geez, that really makes me feel, and that's interesting. That's cool. It never should be easy, I feel. Especially considering given the setting at times.
I agree. I completely agree. Like, the wasteland is meant to be harsh, so give us harsh choices.
Give us a balance.
Yeah, that's right.
What I was saying, kind of topping off what Wade said with The Witcher 3, is that a lot of times in The Witcher 3, they, you noticed games back then, a lot of times was kind of like, either they highlighted what the good choice was in, like, a colored text of, like, blue or something along those lines, or like on the, like, if you had like a dialogue box, it would be like the top choices were good and then the bottom choices were bad, because that just kind of mentally made sense or some shit. Whereas in The Witcher 3, it would come up, this would be a core choice because you were listening to the dialogue, and then you read the choices. You don't just assume like, all right, something along the top will be something good. It'll work out all fine and dandy. You read, you think of the consequences. There were so many times in The Witcher 3. It's not like my favorite game of the year like it is for a lot of people, but I have to give CD Projekt Red all the credit in the world, because they're one of the first games in a long while who made an RPG that I actually like. When there was dialogue, I was fully tuned in. When there was a choice to make, like, I was reading that choice fully and thinking, okay, what can happen after that? Because they don't change the color, the text, or anything. Everything's just a dialogue option, but the game knows it's going to be like a future choice. So I'd love Fallout to do that and just blur the lines and just throw up a bunch of dialogue options, let me know they're there, and let me think of myself on what ramifications these choices could have, and just engage me.
And that's why I think they're going with a new options dial in terms of the dialogue. Like, they're showing you 3 words or 4 words or whatever, but you still don't know what the protagonist is going to say after that. So it could be like, I'm cool, and then he could say something that is tied to that somewhat, but something that was kind of unexpected. You're like, oh shit, did I want to say that or not? But you don't know that because it's just a small phrase, as opposed to Fallout 3 or New Vegas, where you could see everything that the player was going to say. And I think that's exactly why they've gone for that choice, is to not just make everything predictable, but to give us those tough times where, if I say this, what's the protagonist going to say? I don't know the dialogue options yet. And I think that's what Witcher did. I'm not too sure. I didn't play much, but
it's the same kind of thing. It's a little, it's cool. It can be kind of a bit frustrating because it's a bit vague at times. So
that's right.
And maybe that's the case because you're still playing Geralt. It's still his decision in a way. It's a bit weird, but you don't want to get into that whole LA noir thing where you're like, oh, this seems like the right thing to say, and then like you grab the person around the throat and scream in their face. You're like, no, that's not what I want to do. No. So there's a little bit of that sometimes. Like I was playing through something in Witcher 3 last night, and I totally messed it up and had to go back to an old save because I'd like I'd basically ruined it. I'd ruined this whole relationship in the game, and then I'd lost all this content, and then I was like, oh no, that sucks. I didn't want to do that. I thought I was doing the right thing, so then I had to just go back and do it. So there is that balance of like, how do you make it vague enough and interesting enough to let the player know they're making a big decision, but then sometimes the follow through of that decision doesn't always match up. So it's a big balance.
Yeah, I mean, like one of the good examples in Witcher 3, not to really fully derail here, but was the Kira Metz quest line. I don't want to get into specifics, but like that was like probably one of the best quests in that game because it was just there was a bunch of options and it was all about like this relationship that just started off as something simple during the main quest, like, hey, I need your help, and you know she was like, hey, come visit me, I need to talk to you about something, and just branched out in this whole separate thing. That, you know, based off the choices you made and stuff, you know, there was a couple of endings, I believe, for that quest line. You know, it didn't always have to end the way that it ended for me, which I won't spoil, like I said. But, you know, for those who are listening or for us in this podcast, that's a good example on how, like, Fallout 4's questing, you know, should go. I've noticed, I don't know if you guys agree, but the Fallout 4 and The Witcher 3 kind of marry each other in a lot of respects, you know, in the terms of how they're systematically built, whether it's like the dialogue or the rubber banding system, the way they're kind of more of a RPG now. Stuff like that, and I've kind of it took a little bit to grow on me, but I've started to like it a lot more. And when I say it takes a little bit to grow on me, I'm talking about things like the rubber banding system, which I was afraid was like Borderlands, where you know you're in one area, level 5 to 10, and then you go to and then like if I ever come back to the area, especially in Borderlands, you're like level 40 and you're killing a bunch of level 10s. It totally like it's like you just take this plug, you take this plug, you just disconnect it, and like I'm just out of it now, and like that's the stuff that scares me. And so,
right.
Yeah, especially with everything just scales with you. I just hope it all scales.
I remember Borderlands, you would go into this area and think, oh, this is cool. And then when you see that red skull at the top of the enemy, run the other fucking direction. There's no way I want to kill this.
Yeah, and, same with Witcher 3. Yeah, you see the red skull and kind of go, nope.
I remember when I was playing
randomly drops down on you, you're like, fuck this. Like, and it just kicks your ass. You're like, god damn it.
Yeah,
I remember playing Witcher 3, and the first time I saw a red skull, I'm like, I've played enough Borderlands to know what the fuck that means. I'm getting the fuck out of it.
Yeah, run.
I still try to challenge him anyways, but you know, I die. I think to myself, like, maybe if I just use my skill, dodge them enough, and just keep whacking at them, I can maybe kill them. But you get like a couple of cuts in, you don't even see like a shred of their health go away. You're like, wow, okay, I'm fucked.
Yep, no way.
Onto our final bit of news, and this actually comes from that same video from GameSpot with Danny O'Dwyer. He brought up something that like a lot of people overlooked, and I'm actually making a video on this because it's like a brand new feature to Fallout 4. It's a little thing, but it's still something I want to talk about. And he said that Fallout 4 now has like a radio weapon menu where like you hold the button and it brings it up, and you get to select through a couple weapons. You can select stim packs or Radaway now, Radax. Like you can, it's almost like the favorites menu for Skyrim. But it's better because you hold it up and you can just select from all that stuff. So you can probably like highlight like 4 weapons and then like, you know, all your stim packs and stuff. So I think it's awesome now that they have this thing that you can fully access and kind of switch weapons for occasions. Because I learned through a post on Sugar Bombs. I'm sorry I don't remember the name of the person who posted it. But if you notice in the Fallout 4 gameplay trailer at the end of E3, there's like a shield for your physical resistance. But then there was like a little lightning bolt next to that person's like health bar or whatever. And everyone was like, what is that? Is that like stamina? What the hell is that? It turns out that's energy resistance, which is a whole different thing. So if I run into an enemy with a high energy resistance but a low like physical resistance, maybe I'll pull out like a melee weapon or like a shotgun, blow him away, but then someone else comes up to me who's got a lower energy resistance, take back out my energy weapon, and just keep going to town on him. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's awesome that they have this whole radio weapon menu that allows me to kind of switch up my weapons for whatever style. I show up to an area where I can look down on a perch of people. I can pull out a sniper rifle. You know what I'm saying? I think it's I think it's so cool that they're including this.
Yeah, like Fallout 3, I think they had something loosely similar to that, but I don't think it was effective. Like I found myself always going back into the Pip-Boy because even though I can't remember it for the life of me.
They never stuck, I remember.
That's right.
Maybe that was a bug. You'd set up them in your D-pad. This is playing on 360, I should say.
Yeah.
Console trash that I am. You'd bind it to, stim packs to down on your D-pad or whatever, and then your next session they just never stayed. You had to do it every session, so you just go into your Pip-Boy every time to just muck around.
Every time you took out that weapon out of your Pip-Boy into your some sort of inventory like a chest or whatever, and then took it back out, you had to rebind them, which is fucking annoying. Like every time, like, even when I'm playing on PC, like I have all the bindings because I have a mouse with like buttons on the side. So every time I like, all right, I want to chuck all my stuff in here and get stim packs. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I've got like 12 buttons on the side that you can configure, but every time because I have an auto sorting mechanism where I'm like, all right, sort all of my medicine, and then it'll do that. Then I can pick up my stim packs again. But then I'm in battle, and I'm like, fuck, I forgot to rebind my stim pack. So I'm going to there, rebinding it, and then I'll die because I don't have stim packs as number 6, which is usually what I do. So I'm hoping that in Fallout 4 it'll be a bit more seamless.
Yeah, I mean, like, I should also highlight that it's like it's not like just a favorites menu, or it's not just like the D-pad where you flip through your weapons like that. It's like apparently it's an actual menu. Like, I'm assuming it'll be kind of like, think of GTA. That's like the best example I can think of a radial weapon menu, GTA 5, where you hold like whatever button and you bring up all those weapons around that wheel, and you just flip the one and you pick it, like kind of like that, but like cut that in half, put only like 4 weapons there, hypothetically speaking, and like a stim pack for your left and right away for your right. That's how I'm imagining it, but that's kind of how it goes, just so you guys know that it's not just like this shoehorned in like favorite menu or whatever. It's something that seems like, based off the way it is, it should stick, you know what I'm saying, so that you guys don't have that issue. I personally was one who didn't hotkey stuff, because a lot of times when battles got heated, and that's why Fallout 4 is going to be tough for me in a way, is because, I like to bring up the D-pad, pause, switch weapons for the right scenario, heal, stuff like that. That's how I took it. So Fallout 4, and it's a good change of pace, by the way. I'm cool with it, but it's going to be really different, and so stuff like that I like it.
Yeah, it seems like everything is going to be a bit more, even with the improvement of the FPS mechanics, but for example, how that slows down as opposed to stopping. I'm hoping that there's less of that, so combat seems a bit more fluid, and there's not a lot of stopping and starting, because every time you go into your Pip-Boy, like, fuck, I still don't know whether the Pip-Boy stops time or not. I really don't.
People, see, here's the thing. Let me go back to that. Because
I believe it does.
People say at QuakeCon during the demo, they're like, oh my god, how'd you not see any articles? It does stop time. Do your research. I'm like, I've never fucking seen an article that says the Pip-Boy stops time. I used the IGN live blog during QuakeCon, and then I went to Andrew Reiner's awesome-ass Game Informer write-up, and both of those didn't mention it, so I'm like, okay, so we still don't know. And then during the E3 demo, I keep referencing it, remember when he brings up the Pip-Boy and he like pulls it away from his face, you can see everything behind him and stuff? Like, I thought to myself,
it seems like it's in real time.
That's what I'm saying. I thought it would be so much better if it was in real time, because I think that extra additional danger of like, holy fuck, something can creep up on me is cool. And like, you use The Last of Us for an example, where you open your backpack and you start creating like a bat with a barbed wire on it, like on the fly while people are running at you. Like, that shit is so intense. Like, I would have loved if they made the Pip-Boy in real time. It seems like they didn't, but I mean, I don't know. I don't know really either. I think it is, but some people are arguing that it's been in articles, so I'm not gonna go against the articles necessarily, but I want to hear from Bethesda at this point.
No, definitely. But even from like a realism perspective, it doesn't make sense to go into a Pip-Boy and for time to stop. It doesn't. And I understand this is a video game, and even now VATS is just going to slow down time, but it does add a bit to the intensity where you can't just like, oh, fuck, there's a Deathclaw. I want to pull out my Pip-Boy, take a bit of a time to relax and chill, go get a drink, and then I'll kill this Deathclaw. Like, that doesn't make sense,
I've done
right?
that before. I'll like bring up the Pip-Boy in Remote Combat. My mom will call me for something. I'll just walk out of the room. Like,
like, fair enough that there are pause menus for that. So if you need to stop time for whatever reason, press start or press escape on the PC. But in terms of the Pip-Boy, I think if not real time, then like the VAT system, slow down. That makes more sense to me.
That would be cool. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's also cool, and it's kind of playing into that whole thing about whether or not the Pip-Boy freezes time, is that there's a bit of a cooldown on stim packs. Did you guys read that?
Yeah.
So that could be really good, because that's the one thing you always do, like using your Deathclaw example, is that, oh no, it's a Deathclaw. All right, so Pip-Boy, just bunch of stim packs, change to a better weapon. Away we go, and if you can't do that, especially if you can't spam stim packs, then I think that'll make the game a lot more interesting and a lot more balanced as well.
Like, I think I want to say that Bethesda's taking a lot of inspiration from mods like Fallout Wanderers Edition, which, if you don't know, Wade,
definitely.
It's pretty much like, all right, if you use the stim pack, it's going to heal you slowly over time, which is what New Vegas did in hardcore mode. Yeah, exactly. So that's where New Vegas got that. But then there are so many other features where it just generally makes the game harder, and I'm hoping that Bethesda goes down that route, even if it's just solely isolated to the hardcore mode, if they do have a hardcore mode. Make, stim packs slowly heal over time. Make it have a cooldown system in just hardcore mode where you can't just keep using stim packs. Even in Fallout Wanderers Edition, make it so if you have a limb that's crippled, you can only heal that limb, and if you have another limb crippled, you can't do that for another 10 minutes. Those things make it fucking difficult. And that's exactly what... Like, I remember playing Wanderers Edition on Fallout 3 when I installed it, and I'm like, oh shit, I got a crippled head and a crippled arm. I'll fix the arm, and I'm like, all right, now I'll fix the head. I used like 10 stim packs on the fucking head because it wouldn't work. Like, what is going on? Is this a glitch or something? And then I realized that was intentional. So I've wasted 10 stim packs, and I still have a crippled head. I think that would be really cool to see.
Yeah. I mean, they certainly take inspiration from a lot of games, and they do it admittedly so. They usually say, like, yeah, we added this feature, and we kind of got this idea from this and that, and it's awesome that they kind of do that. It's not like owning up to anything by any means, but it's really cool. They kind of openly say, like Fallout Shelter, for example, they're like, oh, you'll see similarities to XCOM and FTL, and it's like, yeah, I do see those, but it's cool that you put your own flavor on it.
That's right.
They're just a humble ass studio, honestly.
Love Bethesda.
Yeah.
That wraps up our news bit. Oh wait, one final piece of news. How could I have forgotten? This was easily the I don't know how I forgot this too. This was easily the biggest highlight of the week. Pete Hines took to Twitter and decided to roast me. Hard.
Oh, excellent. we gotta highlight that. Oh my god, I could not stop laughing when I saw that.
Retweet it.
So sorry. I'm gonna retweet it right now. Excuse me.
For those who don't know the story, because it turns out somehow, even though it's actually been like placed according to Lone on a lot of places in the internet, I didn't even know. I was wondering why I got so many favorites. I'm like, okay, now it makes sense. But yeah, I someone posted a close-up of Pete Hines, and like I know he said something. He went through something with depression and shit, and I could tell he didn't like that. That's why I haven't memed Pete Hines since I put his head on a ketchup bottle, because Pete Hines, it's funny. But, I put his head on a ketchup bottle as a Twitch emoticon. I asked for his thoughts on it as a joke, but ever since then I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna fuck with him anymore. And so when someone fucked with him like that, I'm like, oh, Pete, I feel your pain, dude. Welcome to the Fallout community. He's like, instead of saying, hey, thanks, Matty, it's cool. He's like, I was dying when I saw this. He's like, thanks with a question mark. He's like, what the fuck did he say? He said like, one of us
he says, one of us has been around the Fallout community since the late 90s.
Yeah. I'm like, all right, guy, I can't control him 20. Like, what the fuck? God damn. He got me good, though. I showed my friends. I was laughing when I was like, damn, he got me hard. But yeah, that's easily the biggest piece of news this week. I swear everyone who hated me had the biggest vengeance boner on. I bet they did.
Oh, my God.
Great stuff.
That's awesome. I've just retweeted it, Matty. People
are so did I.
Thank you. I almost made it my Bethesda Spotlight because it was that bad. But speaking of that, I guess we'll move on to that. Would anyone like to go first?
Wade, have you thought of something for the Bethesda Spotlight?
In terms of this week, I was thinking a little bit about in terms of kind of their relationship with their games and how it's come to Fallout 4 in terms of the Bethesda Spotlight. Like, I spent a bit of time. I mean, it's normally a case-by-case study in terms of the kind of games of theirs that I'm into. Yeah. And I thought a lot about their trajectory as kind of storytellers. And I kind of like when I get into it a little bit on our Fallout, I'm always kind of I'm a big Fallout 3 contrarian. Is that I always discuss like what worked in the narrative in Fallout 3, and this is coming from a guy who's got like 100 hours in it, and what doesn't work. And I think hopefully there's my kind of big theme in terms of discussing Bethesda this week is their growth as narrative storytellers. And, again, we've talked about Witcher 3 so much this podcast, but I think the kind of gauntlet has kind of been thrown down a bit in terms of having an accessible RPG with an in-depth narrative.
Yeah.
And so I think the big theme for me is seeing how they grow. And I know Emil was the writer and lead kind of designer on Fallout 3. And so it'd be really interesting to see how he's grown as a writer, which I'm sure he has because we all do. And changing their kind of like their belief system from stories for everyone to making specific comments in narrative and specific kind of like, we're going to go with this kind of story and you're going to kind of be a part of it, and we're going to say these kind of things and explore these kind of themes, rather than saying, look, we're going to do a power play fantasy, which I'm sure there's plenty of that in Fallout 4, considering you're jumping out of vertibirds and you're in power armor and all that kind of stuff. I have no doubt, but I definitely like the idea of how Skyrim like is kind of killing dragons, really. I mean, that's really kind of it. It's just like dragons have come back to destroy the world.
Yeah.
Fallout 3 had the kind of Project Purity and the kind of father-son, father-daughter relationship exploration. But I think it's way more interesting, especially as you get older, to explore a man or a woman who had a family and lost that family, and then they wake up, or whatever they are, 200 years later, and they have to deal with the loss, and then, moving on and creating a new life. So I think that's like probably one of the most clever stories, and if they explore that kind of theme, I think that's really cool. So I definitely think the big thing for me this week is seeing how they've grown as a company in a narrative sense, because I'm pretty time poor now, so games that get me are always games that have a great narrative and allow me to kind of spend time in another world. So I'm just really excited about the prospect that they could be growing.
No, I agree.
To make a more nuanced storytelling.
Yeah, I've talked about this so many times in the past, how even though Fallout 3 I consider to be my favorite game of all time, it just didn't have a compelling story in my opinion. It was just, your dad is gone, you got to find your dad, and now he's trying to save the wasteland, by fixing the water supply. It was okay as a backdrop, but when I think of compelling stories, I think of games like, and I mention it all the time, but Bioshock. Bioshock has a fantastic, phenomenal story that, even though some people thought the gameplay was sometimes crap, I didn't think so. But
don't know how.
Yeah, I don't know how either. But even though some people might not like the gameplay, they'll still like the game because of the story. It's that good. No matter what game I think you go to, I think Infinite was better than the rest in terms of storyline and narrative.
Yeah.
But those games, like when you finish it and sit back and think, holy fuck, that was incredible. Those are the kinds of experiences that I want in video games. And I'm hoping that more games from now on really start to focus on narrative, because gameplay is very important. Obviously, we're playing video games, so that should be one of the top priorities, if not the top priority. But if you have a game that can execute great gameplay, but then also tell a brilliant story that makes you think and makes you feel and makes you have goosebumps after you finish it, or when there's a twist at the end. Those are the games that I think really resonate with me personally and resonate with a lot of people really well. So I'm feeling the same as you, Wade. I'm hoping Fallout 4 does tell a bit more of a compelling narrative that has some twists as well. Like that's what I also like as well.
I think also the Last of Us has also changed things a lot as well. Where you really you have like a really subtle, nuanced story where all the voice performances and direction are really, really beautiful and stripped back, and so you can't come back to telling any kind of story without that kind of gravitas now. So you have to do it. The game is just too high now. So if you're coming back to any kind of world, especially if you're looking at a post-apocalyptic world, you'll have your wacky stuff, which is great, which is funny, your robots and mutants and laser guns and that kind of stuff. But then you have to look at the human side of what the world is now and how everyone's trying to survive. And then coming back to play a character, that's great. The family you had, the life you had is now gone, and now this is what you got. So it's up to you how you kind of push forward. And I think thematically that's very cool.
Yeah, I agree.
I'll say this much: The Last of Us, the ending for that game, still sits with me.
Don't spoil it.
I'm not. I will never spoil a game on this podcast ever. But I'm just saying, speaking very generally, it just still sits with me to this day. Like everything that happened in that game, like I remember it so fondly. And think about it, that's tough for a game. There are games that I played at the beginning of the year that I hardly remembered. Like Dying Light, I remember the gameplay, but if you ask me anything about that story, I hate to admit it, and I usually, I don't know why I hate admitting it, but like I don't remember a real thing about that story because it really wasn't compelling. But the fact that a game many years ago, this is why I say KOTOR is one of my favorite games of all time, because I played that when it first launched when I was a kid. You know, I remember that so fondly, you know, entirely as a whole. And for a game, you know, especially around like 2012 is when I really started ramping up and playing like every game that I could possibly come out. The fact that throughout all those games I played between June 2013 and now, that I still remember so much that happened in Last of Us, and like, you know, how just great of a game it was, and that the ending of that game still sits with me. Like, that's why it's such a masterpiece. And
yeah, absolutely.
If Fallout ever achieved that medium of storytelling, I think I could die happy.
But it would take it from like a really, really, really good game to a perfect game. I think that's the one thing that, like, we're not talking about lore here. Fallout has a rich lore, and it's incredible just to immerse yourself in. But in terms of storytelling and narrative in a game, that's, I think, where Fallout is still a bit lacking, and I'm hoping Fallout 4 picks it up a little bit there.
I'm one who believes that Fallout 3's story was good at the time, but it hasn't aged well. And I think that New Vegas' story has aged well because it's a lot more branching paths and free. Like, you pick this faction, you go through all these faction quests, do it on your own, you know, that type of stuff. I think that's why New Vegas has aged better. I still think Fallout 3 is my favorite of the two, but I will wholeheartedly admit now that New Vegas is, like, over time has become the better Fallout game for people coming into the series because of what it offers.
Yeah.
Sure.
No, definitely. Like, even, and not to spoil, but if you haven't finished New Vegas, probably stop listening for a second. But like, even it started off so simple. You know, you were a courier, you were delivering this package, and you got shot. And then initially the story was about, all right, I got to find Benny and kill this motherfucker. But then it became so much more than that. Exactly. And I think New Vegas, you know, definitely, I agree with you, Matty, did what Fallout 3, I think, didn't do so well in terms of narrative, but I still think there's a lot to improve upon just with Fallout and generally in storytelling. So yeah,
I always say that if they took the choices of New Vegas and then and when I say choices of New Vegas, I mean like picking these factions, getting involved in these characters in each faction, having them kind of be flushed out more with proper development time, which Bethesda obviously has, but putting a good story on top of that kind of template is what Fallout 4 needs.
Absolutely.
It doesn't need this dramatic plot twist that, oh, fuck, what did I just see? I love that because I love plot twists. I'm a sucker for them. But, you know, it doesn't need that. If it's just a solid story, you know, I'm all for that. But I think it's going to be good this time because to go from like, okay, we admit it, we can't make a good, not can't make a good story, but we haven't made this bomb story, you know. Let's ditch the silent protagonist and go for voice because we want to make a good story. You know, that type of determination and dedication to, like, let's change the series up, something they haven't done since, ever, you know. I think is one of those bold statements like, holy crap, they mean it. I'm expecting a good story now.
Yeah, definitely.
Because now they're going all out.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll quickly cover a Bethesda Spotlight. And it's funny, it's not necessarily tied to Bethesda, but it's something that I think more people should do more of. So in the lead up to Fallout 4, what I've been trying to do is get into the whole post-apocalyptic genre and medium, but in different areas. So there's a movie and a film that I watched recently called The Road. And essentially what it is, it's this post-apocalyptic world where it's a father and son that have to trek throughout the wasteland. And it gave me this Fallout-esque feeling, this sense of hopelessness, and it was one of the better movies that I've watched recently. And the reason why I'm highlighting it, because I think in the lead up to Fallout 4, Matty's doing a Fallout 1, 2, and Tactics playthrough, and that's great in terms of Fallout lore, but also as well, just to immerse yourselves in other kinds of mediums that deal with post-apocalyptia. Watch movies like The Road. Play other video games like Rage, even though that's a Bethesda game. I'm trying
Rage for the win.
Branch myself out, essentially. And if you watch The Road, it's a phenomenal film, and I'm not sure if any of you guys have watched it, but please watch
absolutely.
it. And there is one scene which you got to it, and I'm like, holy fuck, this is like Andale. And you guys remember Andale, obviously. Yeah. But when you get to this bit in the movie, and I won't spoil it, you'll know exactly what I mean. So that's one tip to you guys. Before Fallout 4, watch that movie, The Road. It's phenomenal.
Is it on Netflix?
It is actually, yes.
Oh wow. Okay, cool. I got something
Yeah,
to
it
watch.
is. Yeah, it's on Australian Netflix as well.
Yeah, it's on Australian Netflix, which is great because Australian Netflix is dumbed down to shit.
No, that's a gorgeous film. It's a beautiful book too. And the book is just like the film. Like they're both really poetic. And Viggo Mortensen is just incredible. And it's a hard watch. It's not a fun film because it's a very realist look at a post-apocalyptic landscape.
Yep.
But it's really great. Heaps of tension, wonderful performances. I couldn't recommend it enough.
Definitely.
Yeah,
Matty, watch it.
I can't speak much on it because I haven't seen it. Sorry. So I'll move on to mine, I guess. Bethesda Spotlight. I told everyone beforehand. It's an article. I highlighted this article in a video.
Yeah.
Fallout 4 is a recycled Fallout 3. Now I want to let you guys know I'm not personally attacking the writer because his work is good. It's what he said that didn't make sense. And so I made a video on my thoughts on this whole thing, and I don't want to further push that because I don't want to look like a bully, to tell you the truth, because it's one thing to have an opinion on someone's piece, but to insult their work is another thing, and I'm not going to do that. What I want to focus on in this article is that he kind of seemed to have it out for Bethesda in a very weird sense, which is fine. Not everyone's going to love them. But the reason I think it was so off is because he was complaining about things that you could literally counter-argue like that. Like he said, why doesn't Bethesda upgrade their engine? And it's like, well, they did. He's like, why doesn't Fallout 4 have jaw-dropping views? And it's like, well, in the beginning of the trailer, when you exit the vault, you see the entire wasteland. They did. He's like, where are all the weapons? Todd Howard says there's 50 base weapons plus 700 mods, and then obviously all the rare, unique weapons and armor on top of that. And it's like, why would you say that if you could just easily counter-argue it? And this really turns into less of a Bethesda Spotlight and more of a kind of a controversial discussion, I guess. But I like to talk about that stuff, to tell you the truth. But the reason why I think it was so off is, like I say, he was complaining for the wrong reasons. And it got me thinking, for the first time ever, I always give journalists the benefit of the doubts, but it got me thinking for the first time ever if he was just trying to, stir up controversy for, additional attention, for, that what if kind of thing. And I thought to myself, I'm like, I've never thought this before, because I believe as someone who creates content, much like this guy, that's not your perspective when you make these things. But when you put so many things that can be countered so easily, you wonder if they're just putting that for the headline and just being like, okay, I'll deal with the flack afterwards. And that's what I wanted to highlight, kind of. I don't need to put anyone in an uncomfortable position if you guys don't want to comment on that whole...
No, I kind of complain about it, and I hope I complain about it in a polite way all the time on Twitter. And I've spent nearly 10 years working in documentary filmmakers, and I've been lucky to work with literally Emmy nominated researchers. So Maddie, I basically worked on documentaries for the Australian equivalent of PBS.
That's awesome.
So it's all very,
awesome. Good stuff.
It's all about research and doing the right thing and journalistic integrity and all that kind of conversation. But the entire theme online at the moment is, write rubbish, get people upset, and then sell them ads when they fight in the comments. And that's probably a very general statement to say. And there's lots of bloggers I really like. There's lots of people I like. There's all kinds of video game blogs. They're all great, but I guess the industry is so competitive. There is this theme about just writing just silly things to ensure it gets remembered, and that means then that becomes the norm. So talking about this article you're discussing, it's maybe there's a little bit of that. It's about being provocative, saying things that are gonna make fans upset or whatever. Because now we're talking about it now, aren't we? That's exactly kind of what they want. So
that's what I'm saying. I wonder if
generate a lot of views.
Yeah, I think that's a factor. It may not be that could also be his absolute genuine feelings about that experience. But I feel like there's always a factor of heightening the drama.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. I didn't want to say for the views and stuff, because as someone, like I said, who creates content and earns their revenue based off views, I hate it when people toss that around oh, Maddie, you're just saying this is your opinion so you can get more views. It's well, no, I'm not. But I'm just saying more so the reason that I had an issue with what he said was, and not even an issue, I'm making it sound way too serious, but I'm more so focusing on the fact that his opinion was so easy to counter. You know what I'm saying? Usually when you put up this argument, you can usually, when you take off the blinders of Fallout 4 hype and look at it, you can usually go, maybe like, all right, you know, honestly, he might be right with that. Or, oh, okay, I can see what he's saying with that. Or, oh, that's a point I didn't know about. That's something interesting. But everything he said was something that you could literally go back and look at footage that, and he's seen more than us, which was the weird part, and counter what he had to say. And it's like, I'm not saying every argument you have to have a fucking bulletproof statement, but I'm just wondering if it was so easy to counter, why they published it and promoted it so heavily as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to highlight less of the article, more of the doings potentially behind the article that I wanted to talk about. Not specifically the writer, but maybe the website itself.
Yeah.
Well, I think I think that particular blogging network does a lot of that kind of content, provocative content. And I think they've even covered Fallout Lanius, I think too. I'm pretty sure.
Really?
But they do. Yeah. I think when we first launched and stuff. But that particular blogging network, they do, you know, lots of content a lot of the time. And so it's kind of that's what they do. Provocative content.
Interesting. It's funny because they initially leaked Fallout 4.
Yeah, right. Is this before Kotaku?
No, this was Video Games 24/7, but yeah.
Yeah.
Kotaku, there's a writer from Kotaku who just doesn't like me. You know who I'm talking about.
Jason Schreier.
Yep. He doesn't like me.
That's
if you want to hear a funny story, it's more so funny than anything. Like, I just kind of laughed it off, but like, what happened was he initially leaked those Fallout 4 scripts, and I was skeptical, like 90% of the community. And so I said, like, look, you know, they're cool looking, look into them, but don't take it as like fact. And he came back after Fallout 4 got announced to a tweet of mine that was like, I think either years or months old. I want to go with months. It was back in like December, and the game was revealed in June. He went back all the way to my tweet from December, and he was like, do you believe me now? And I was like, really? I was like, really? Like, good, well played, but really?
He saved it. He was thinking about it.
Yeah, he was.
He was like,
on it. I'm like, I've never held that much of a grudge against someone, and I'm like, I just must be like the Noah of like pissing people off, because Noah just knows how to piss off really famous people. I'm just apparently good at pissing people off in general. Sadly,
that's funny.
What did you respond to? Like, well played. Like,
I think I said to him, like, I'm like, really? Like, that's all I said. I was like, really? Like, I don't care. You were right.
Yeah, right.
Like, I don't work at Kotaku and personally know you. I could be like, oh, Jason's a good guy. Like, he's not gonna lie to me.
Yeah.
Regardless, I'm not just saying this to kiss up. Like, I like his stuff. Like, he's a good writer, regardless of my thoughts on him, and I do.
Yeah, I think I've read some of his stuff.
Yeah, I do look at his work, and he's usually like, when I see an article by him, like I'm like, oh, Jason wrote this. I want to see what he has to say, because he's an educated man. He knows what he's talking about. So I don't want anyone to think I have like some grudge against him. But anyways, let's move on to segment 4, what we're playing in our favorite gaming news bit. Who would like to go first?
I'd like to go first because I'm having an awesome time playing Rare Replay. Amazing. Yeah. Absolutely amazing. Yeah. Like what I've really gotten into was Killer Instinct. I used to love playing that game. Like, oh fuck yeah, Killer Instinct, I'll play it. And I unlocked like Master and I streamed it and finished the game with Saberwolf. That game was just awesome, man. Like, I got all of this nostalgia just, you know, coming back to me. I'm thinking, I need to play more of these games. So yeah, I was playing Killer Instinct, Conker's Bad Fur Day. It was fun as well. I need to get back into Banjo-Kazooie. But all of those games, man, just incredible. Nostalgia.
Yeah, I've been playing that as well. That's not what I'm going to talk about for what we're playing for me. But I've been playing Battletoads, the Arcade Edition. Because there's Battletoads, the one I saw you were playing at one point, Lone. There's that one that's tough as fucking nails.
No, you get
the
to
NES version?
level.
Is that the NES one? It's just...
I believe so.
Yeah.
Hard as hell. I couldn't believe it. I was raging on stream. And then,
it's that hard that they implemented a rewind feature. So if you die, you can rewind. Like, that's actually
even
how hard.
I still got my ass beat. But in the Arcade Edition, you know, they don't give you like game over and stuff. It's just like kind of keep going, keep pushing through. But it's like really hard. But it's so fun. The Arcade Edition, I'm specifying that because that's the one that, if you watch my stream, you know, that's the one that I was having a blast with. Because, dude, sickest soundtrack. There's a Christmas themed level. I love Christmas. Dude, Christmas in August, you got me hooked. Like, I was playing that level. I was jamming out. that game is so good. I've been playing Perfect Dark as well, personally.
Oh, that's a great game.
Yeah.
I love it.
It's like James Bond, just without James Bond in it, And so, like, I was getting hit with some nostalgia when I was playing. I was like, man, I remember James Bond. Oh, wait, Perfect Dark, right?
No, I remember Perfect Dark playing with, like, all of the family. We would have myself and 3 others, and we would just verse a bunch of bots and on very hard or whatever. And that was so much fun. Like, I don't know how many hours we've spent playing Perfect Dark, but I got to, like, one of the highest levels, and I remember my favorite guns were the double maulers. That game was just incredible. I think it took GoldenEye and just did so much better with it. I loved it.
See, what sucked for me was that the 2 games that I played the most that were Rare's, like, biggest games, like, of course, weren't on Rare Replay. So, like, I'm kind of experiencing a lot of these games for the first time. But, like, of course, I played the hell out of GoldenEye. I played the hell out of Donkey Kong Country, I think it was. And they couldn't, for obvious legal reasons, get those on to Rare Replay, and I'm like, shit, those are the one games I could have had the nostalgia throwback on, but instead I'm like experiencing these old games for the first time. Like, like I've only briefly played Conquer. Yeah, I was gonna say I've only briefly played them. That game is the contextual commands they call them, or you just go and press B and then something random comes out. That's like the
Conquer is such a fucked up game. It's it's so awesome.
I don't know how it got on Nintendo, like on the 64. It must have been a nightmare to get it through the kind of Japanese standards or whatever. I
don't know if I was reading or someone told me in a chat. Someone said that like Conker's Bad Fur Day was supposed to be a kids game and people made fun of it when they saw it, and so they said fuck them and literally changed it to the most mature rated game they possibly could. That's what I've heard. And I'm like,
we loved it as kids because it was just so ridiculous. I thought the polish, so ridiculous, but I thought the polish was really high too. All these different like little visual effects. Yeah. Even something as simple as him being hungover and vomiting or whatever. But then there's so many visual effects. Like there's different things that can happen to him. The way he dies. Yeah. I remember thinking, if he gets cut in half by a fan or whatever, and all the kind of movie kind of parody stuff. Yeah. It's just really
it's
funny.
Gruesome, but it's not in a realistic way. Like you can tell, like the blood looks so like cartoony.
Dude, but it's so weird because I was literally about to mention the blood because he's like adorable in a way. And when he got hit on stream and I saw blood fly, I'm like, holy fuck, you bleed in this game? I'm like, oh my god. Like,
I remember a teddy bear and I was playing multiplayer and on the very hard difficulty, I don't know why, and someone just sniped me, like one of the computers, and my head just exploded. I'm like, holy fuck, this game is crazy. Rare Replay. In terms of news, I don't actually have that much news, so I want to pass on this one. I've been playing too much Rare Replay, to be honest.
I guess I'll go next.
Sure.
I've been playing mainly Rare Replay whenever I have time, but I'm going to highlight the 2 games that I've played this week because they kind of blur the lines in a sense of like choice, and I wanted to focus on them. So the first game I'm going to talk about, I won't spoil a thing. Life is Strange Episode 4. Holy fuck.
So you freaking out about that on Twitter.
Holy fuck. Oh my god. Seriously, like, Don't Nod Entertainment is the most now underrated developer because there is just not enough Life is Strange hype because it's so, okay, like, I can't lie. I read the description for this game before it launched, and like I was like, this is relatable. A girl around my age going to a new school. She gets time control powers. That's not the relatable part, but like she's going to a new school and she's like trying to fit in. It's like I've seen this happen before. I've been a part of people who've had that happen in their life and befriended them. This is a relatable game, and it has become a relatable game in a lot of senses. So it's why I kind of personally connected with it. But seeing is how this game's developed from like the beginning to where it is now, it's just like it's mind blowing. It's such a good game. It's only $20 for all the episodes. I just insist that if you have $20 to just throw and you like the telltale style of storytelling, choices, and conversation in that sense, but also like the freedom of rewinding some choices at times, seeing how things play out, messing around with the universe, investigating stuff, getting additional little objectives to do in this world, it's totally worth it. It's so good. But the reason I said I wanted to mention 2 games is because I've also started a second playthrough on this game called Spec Ops: The Line. Has anyone here played that game?
Oh, I need to play that.
I finished that. Yeah. It's excellent. It's really excellent.
God. Excellent game. Yeah. And Lone, you need to play. It was just on sale for $6, and I bought it.
No, I have it. I bought it. I just need to fucking install it and play it.
You really should, because once again, I won't spoil the choice, but the choice in that game, much like choices in Life is Strange and how we were talking about in The Witcher 3, and what we want in games are like in both these games, and how they blur the lines of like, either way, you're getting fucked over here. But
yeah, is it a long game? Like, does it take? I don't think it's that long.
Spec Ops The Line is
I don't
about
think so.
8 hours, 10 hours.
Oh,
tops.
cool! All right, fuck yeah!
That's what I'm
I'll
saying.
stream that
so
or some shit.
You can play it on stream and whatever. It's
Sweet.
because it starts off. What's interesting about Spec Ops The Line, and like I said, no spoilers, but I'll tell you this much: it starts off as like your basic military shooter in a sense. Like when you're playing it, you're like, this is kind of. But then, like, as time goes on, it just builds and builds, and then there's choices afterwards. You're like, what the hell, man? Like, it's crazy.
Yeah. It's really cool.
It's really a game that if you stick through the ride, it's not tough to stick through, but if you stick through the ride, it's intense. Like, the battle chatter and shit is nuts. Apparently, Spec Ops The Line has given people PTSD. Like,
holy shit.
It's that emotional, dude. It's a heavy game. It really is.
Yeah, it's a really excellent script too, and the gameplay is probably not the highlight because it's just third-person cover shooting. But the characters and the writing and the kind of exploration of player choice or whatever is very, very cool. And Nolan North's fantastic. He voices the protagonist, and it doesn't really sound like Nolan North either. There's always this conversation about like there's only like 2 voice actors in all of gaming. It's like Nolan North or Troy Baker, who are both excellent. But no, like it's really, really cool. And if you enjoy films like Apocalypse Now, you'll definitely get into Spec Ops because it's got that whole really heavy conversation exploration of what it is to be a killer in the military, I guess.
Yeah, it's like the reason why the gameplay is so passable is because, like you said, Wade, it's basic third-person shooting to a T, but it's like I said, the battle chatter. Like you have people screaming on the mic to you, like you hear the enemies screaming and shit. Like it's real, man. Like, it feels so real, and that's why it's so engrossing. Not because of the gameplay mechanic, but because of what they do with the scripting and stuff. Like, I couldn't even try to imitate it because it's just the way they do it so well. And back to the Nolan North thing. That's why he's in so many games. Is because of how talented he is. He's the only guy I know who can go from serious soldier and emotional as hell in Spec Ops The Line to Deadpool to Nathan Drake.
Yeah.
It's like that's why he's in other games because he can be that flexible with all these roles.
And he's now Ghost as well.
Yeah, so it's
that's right.
All of Ghost.
Peter Dinklage.
No more funny. Dink. It's all Nolan North.
Yeah, Peter Dinklage needs to kind of get into it, man. He could be good in video games, but he's just like, that's interesting right there. Yeah,
he didn't. Yeah, no, that was I think he's very angry at his agent right now. I think. Mm-hmm. Why did you book me for this? I didn't like it, despite the money.
That was an interesting story. How they just get. I don't think they have bad intentions getting rid of him. Like I think the reason was we want to tell the story further, but we need Ghost to sound like the same.
Yeah.
So that's why they got Nolan North for everything.
They probably checked in with him and he's like, yeah, it's whatever.
He's shooting Game of Thrones. He doesn't.
Yeah, he's probably like, HBO fucking just makes stacks. I'm fine. Don't worry about it.
But not Nolan North though, man. Like he's a good choice. I remember Black Ops. He was Dr. Richtofen, I think. That was a great.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like he's so many places.
Yeah, I love it.
As for my favorite gaming news bit, I'm sorry, I don't mean to take up that much time. But my favorite gaming news bit was this week during GamesCom when they finally revealed Mafia 3. And what I want to focus on is because of how different it is. And so many people were like, oh, where's the New Yorker Italian and fucking Mafia? This is bullshit, man. Like, people were getting racist because the fucking protagonist is half black. I'm like,
oh my god.
Yeah, it got ridiculous. And I'm like, holy shit. Like, this is good. Change is good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially in a series like Mafia. Like, they did the climbing from the
Italian
bottom.
American.
Yeah, the Italian American climbing from the bottom of the mob, or the mafia rather, to the top, living the good life and having it all fall apart twice now. If they did it a third time, it would have been fun, but I want to see something different. And going into 1968 in New Orleans and playing as a totally different protagonist, and instead of being a part of the mafia, you're in part of the black mob attacking the mafia and taking them down because they're so fucked up now, is awesome in my opinion.
That sounds cool. That
sounds really cool. Yeah.
And if you watch everyone was like, Oh man, that reveal trailer for Mafia 3. Not everyone. I'm using too much hyperbole. A decent amount of people were like that Mafia 3 trailer was just so cheesy because of the lines he was saying, but it was like
I thought it was good.
I thought it was good. Like the atmosphere and tone that they set in that trailer was perfect in my opinion. Like fucking perfect. Like I could feel the emotion. I could tell what his goal was, what he wanted to do, why he wanted to do it. You know, it didn't seem like they was just baseless like I'm going to kill everyone. You know, people were complaining that it was following the war theme, but I think like that backstory of being a part of the war kind of explains why our protagonist could still use all these weapons. Because like if Vito wasn't a part of World War II, how the fuck could he start using like the shotgun efficiently and then switch into a Tommy gun using that efficiently? You know, it wouldn't make sense. So that's why like it makes sense that Lincoln's in the Vietnam War, which is going to be interesting in its own right because that was such a heavy war as well.
And so bad for returning servicemen as well. Like that's like if you've ever read a comic book called Preacher, they explore that a little bit as well.
Yeah.
You know, walking the street and having like strangers spit in your face. And I think that's like exploring like civil rights and then being a returning serviceman in New Orleans, which is like the most complex racial city.
Yeah.
That's just really, really cool. I think it's fantastic, and it's a really complex time, and it'll have all the action crime stuff coming at the wazoo, I have no doubt. But like, it's great to have a kind of a black or a half black protagonist dealing with post-Vietnam War, and you know, it's really cool. It's in terms of crime stuff, it's pretty fresh, I feel.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like they could have gone up because it's a new studio making. I think they're called like Hangar 13. I don't remember. I can't.
Yeah, I think it's Hangar 13.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. And you know, it's a new studio, and they could have just followed in the footsteps to play it safe for their. I don't want to say first game, but like I haven't heard of them since then or since this game. But you know, for their first Mafia game, we'll assume. You know, to see them kind of come in and try something new and bold and fresh is bold actually. You know, it's they could have just. You know, kind of follow the Vito storyline. Like, 10 years later, here's what's happening with Vito. Playing New York again, you know. Here's the same thing that you liked. Instead, they're like, no, fuck that. Let's try something new in every direction. And I respect them for that. I think that's a good choice, too. And, like, people were so surprised. Like, in the fucking reveal picture, you could see crocodiles in the water. It's obviously not going to be in New York. What do you expect?
It's like the Everglades.
Like, I'm like, what are you thinking? What was the surprise here? And like people are complaining that they're like, that's not Vito. What are you talking about? Because he's back. I'm like, yes, Vito aged. I think that's the one thing they fucked up though, because like he was born in like 1925. By the time the game ended, I think he was like 26, and then the game's only another 20 years later. So he's like in his late 40s or something, but he's got full gray hair. Kind of doesn't make sense.
Yeah, that's right. The guy looks like maybe like late 40s, early 50s or something.
Yeah, like I thought he would be like, looked like he was in his 60s, but I mean, like people gray at whatever times. I'm not gonna get into that shit, but like I'm making a whole video on like what's wrong with Mafia 3. Like I just want to talk about that, but yeah, like the reveal has me stoked. You know, yeah, I really liked what I saw. I wish they showed a little more gameplay, but honestly, it was good. That reveal trailer was good.
I think it looks great. I thought it was well written too. So that's really cool for me.
Yeah. Lone, you need to play Mafia 2. You don't have to play Mafia 1. Like there's one
Mafia 2 is good.
Yeah, there's one mission in Mafia 2 that if you play Mafia 1, you're going to be like, "Holy fuck." But other than that, Mafia 2 is kind of standalone, and so I'm telling you now, Lone, you can play it. You have my permission. You should do it.
Oh, I have your Well, now I will play it, Matty. Thank you. I appreciate that.
I don't know if you're into those type of games, but it's cool, especially because Mafia 2 is really top notch in the sense of like performance. It's really good. Like very few games I'm like, wow, this is a great performance, you know. But that's one of them. And I'm like, they really fucking nailed it. This is good.
Yeah. No, I definitely want to play it.
I believe we all went. Yeah. Oh no, Wade's up.
Oh no, I'll do mine really, really quickly.
No, you don't. No rush.
I'm playing heaps, or not heaps. I'm playing about an hour of Witcher 3 every day, and that's really great. You know, it's going to take me. Look, I'll be playing Witcher 3 until Fallout 4 comes out. I feel there's just so much content.
Not a bad thing.
Yeah, look, just loving it. I think it's just absolutely superb, and the constant updates from CD Projekt Red are really, really cool. And it's just they just care about the community. They put the time in. I bought the super duper collector's edition. More than happy to spend that kind of money on that kind of content because it's so high quality. And look, every session I play, there's always something funny. There's always some great action, and there's always a narrative hook. Like every session, so a 45-minute hour session, like that blend and balance in gameplay is pretty crazy. Like, and especially now that absolutely for an open world game. Like I've probably spent the last 2 weeks in I'm playing an hour 45 minutes a day in Novigrad alone, and every session is like that. I'll do that's right. So I'm gonna try to clear. Like I haven't even explored Novigrad at all. I've done a bunch of stuff in Velen, and I'm just in the city of Novigrad now.
I'll tell you this much: if you think Novigrad's good, wait till later. Like it gets better. Skellige's supposed to be insane, isn't it? Skellige is really fucking good. I thought Novigrad was the low point personally for certain reasons I won't say, but Skellige, oh man, even the side quests there. I'm gonna admittedly say I need to finish that game because I'm close as hell to the end. I think Batman came out because Witcher 3 really is a ginormous game. Like I played that game for a month straight and still didn't finish the main story. Like that's how big it was, and I have all the respect for CD Projekt Red, and that's why I'm gonna go back and finish it because I want to see. I've heard the ending's really good too, and like I just wanna, and it hasn't been spoiled for me either. So it's like I've had my chance now. 3 months later, I should probably finish this game.
I would not read the comment section of this video now because I bet you someone's going to spoil it.
now they're going to because you said that. Yeah, you're giving them the idea. Yeah. So I've been playing. Yeah, so I've been playing heaps of Witcher 3, which is great. And I think the coolest bit of news, aside from Mafia 3, which I thought looked really great, was just a little bit more on Battlefront. So I'm pretty excited about that. I haven't played any of the other Battlefronts, so it's completely new to me. And I haven't played a Star Wars game, I think, since KOTOR. Okay. So that looks fun. My brother's a big Star Wars fan, and I think it's just the kind of thing we'd jump on with buddies and just, shoot one another in the Star Wars universe. And I like the idea that it's all the original 3 films. There's none of the kind of prequels. I like the fact that there's no iron sights, I don't think, and it's great. I love the sound design. I think they released the kind of like dogfighting mode trailer this week.
Fighter Squadron, that's what it was. Yeah.
Fighter Squadron, and I thought that looked fantastic. Again, they're very well cut, and they're very deliberate in terms of how they present the game. They're not raw gameplay, so that'll be interesting to see when the raw gameplay drops. But I thought it looked really cool, and I hope it kind of stacks up because I know it's like there's those charts going around where it looks at all the stripped out features and vehicles and all that kind of stuff. So stupid. Which I mean doesn't mean anything to me because I didn't play the originals. So
honestly, I'll tell you this much, not to cut you off. I'm sorry, I keep doing that. I'm honestly replacing Noah at this fucking point in this podcast. Wait, in case you didn't know, Noah's our other co-host, and he interrupts everybody. He's got the reputation for it, and I'm sorry, I've been doing it so much this podcast.
That's fine.
Thank you. That's comparison chart to Battlefront 2 and Battlefront from DICE is so stupid and irrelevant because, well, first of all, A, video games cost more now. They're not going to be able to make as much, but B, Battlefront 2 is one of my favorite games of all time, and even I will step up and admit this game really wasn't deep at all. There was only like a handful of modes you could play. The story sucked. I don't know why people are complaining about no story in DICE's Battlefront because the story in Battlefront 2 followed the movies, so you just went from map to map in the movie and played Conquest, which I don't know if you've ever seen gameplay on it. It's literally like capture points, like domination in Call of Duty almost. So there's that. Yeah. There was instant action, which was like offline mode where it's like any map, any mode if the map allowed it. But like as for missing vehicles, I really haven't seen many missing vehicles, and the reason that it makes it look like such a big difference is because they cut out the clone wars and stuff. So there's no clone vehicles, there's no clone guns, there's no clone classes, and same thing goes for the droids as well. So it looks like there's such a big gap, but that's like half the game that they just took out. And I love the clones; they're my favorite faction in Star Wars personally. But so I was upset when I saw it. But what I'm trying to say is that like those charts and stuff are so irrelevant and stupid, and they just don't do any justice because it looks like there's such a big difference. But when you play Battlefront 2, it's a game from the PS2, and you can see that because it's just not that deep of a game.
Yeah, right.
There's only that one go-to mode, and then Galactic Conquest, which is what was originally like I thought like the best thing since sliced bread. I fucked that up. That would have been a great line if I got that right. But that was such a highly praised mode. But all it really was it was the Conquest game mode that I told you about. Except you can go from planet to planet and not even tactically. You can just choose to attack a planet against the opposing faction. So if I'm playing as the Empire, I will fight the rebels on this planet, and that's all it was. And people like blew it out of the water, thinking like that this series, that bringing that back would have been a good thing, and it really wouldn't have. And so that's why it's such a big deal now. So I wanted to explain that for anyone out there listening, or for Wade who hasn't played the classic Battlefronts. Yeah, I don't know if that shines any light on any stupid charts you've seen, but.
Yeah, cool. All right. Well, yeah. I mean, it just looks like a great Star Wars game, Star Wars shooter as well. You're not a Jedi. I mean, I imagine there'll be Jedi DLC, as we know, our friends at Electronic Arts, they won't let us down. But I just think it looks great. It just looks really cool, really fun. Jump in, jump out.
Mm-hmm.
And that's me. That's my turn done.
Yeah, no, Battlefront looks fantastic. So many people are like, why is Matty excited for this game? I'm like, it's my childhood. All right, I'll like this thing. If they just like showed me pure shit, I'd still be pretty excited because I've waited longer for this game than Fallout 4, to be honest. And the fact that they come out a week apart is going to end me.
Oh, really? Oh, man.
Fallout 4 comes out on the 10th, and then fucking Battlefront comes out on the 17th. So that'll be interesting. Regardless, though, on to the final segment. The fan questions, and we have taken fan questions, and this is your time, Wade. This is all
great. It's all me.
All you. These are all questions from either Twitter, Sugar Bombed, myself included, and so let's just dive straight into this. The first question comes from Ray Raven on Sugar Bombed, and he says, "Wade, I want to ask you why you decided to choose Legion and Lanius as your story, and how you got inspired to do so."
Well, that's a very good question. A lot of it comes down to what we could actually do and make it work in Western Australia. So if I wanted to do a Fallout story, obviously huge Fallout fan, but we didn't have any of the kind of locations to kind of create something that could do blue jumpsuits and laser guns and robots. Because if you're shooting on location, you just need something that works. But we did have these kind of big rock quarries. And I'd always been a big fan of Lanius as a kind of villain. Like, he's not even really an anti-hero. He's just a villain. Yeah. And I like the fact that he was a character made up of many myths. And I spent a bit of time contacting John Gonzalez and Chris Avallone about his origin story and which story was true and what made the most sense. And both of them kind of discussed the fact that he was kind of a hodgepodge of myths, but then the whole thing with the Hydebarks was probably the closest thing to a canon origin story for him. So I thought, okay, well, let's do a story about that. It was still, extremely difficult to kind of make fight scenes work and create a believable film, but it had less VFX than if we were doing robots and super mutants and ghouls and that kind of stuff, which I think is really hard to do. I think to do well, and the Nuka Break guys have done a good job of it, but they needed a good deal of money, and I mean they're in California for a start, so they've got the right kind of desert, the right kind of locations, and as a character, I thought it'd be kind of interesting to kind of explore the origin of a bad guy, and I threw in a couple of other little elements in there because he's an extremely kind of confronting character about how his relationship with his people and with women and all this kind of stuff. So my whole theme was like, it's kind of like Conan the Barbarian, but if Conan the Barbarian was a douchebag. That's basically the best way to explain Lanius. And he's a brutal character, but he's also like, he's kind of a tactician, and there's kind of different elements to him. So it was kind of fun to explore that in a film. and kind of see people's response to it, which was pretty positive to it, I feel, considering we had a very small budget.
That's interesting.
I love the Lanius storyline because, especially with Nuka Break, which I don't know how recent it was compared to Lanius, but we saw that kind of rendition of Fallout, and no one had really approached the not NCR rather, Kaisar's Legion storyline in a fan film or just like a short film. So I really liked that difference.
Yeah, we wanted to stand out.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Definitely
and you're right
did.
in terms of WA and the setting. It fitted it perfectly. And I think I have no idea how you guys did it, but whoever did the voiceover for Lanius nailed it fucking brilliantly.
Well,
I was gonna ask.
That's Mitch Lewis.
Yeah, I was gonna
That's
say,
Mitch Lewis. That's the same. That's the same guy. That's
so that was
Lanius.
the actor. Oh,
Yeah.
That
awesome.
was the same voice actor. Yeah, we
gonna
got him
ask
on.
that, 'cause
Yeah.
I was afraid to ask because I saw in the comments someone was like, I was reading them real quickly, and someone was like, "Oh, wow, they got the original guy," and they're like, "No, they didn't read the credits." I'm like, "Wait, that wasn't him. Whoever that was did that spot on." So that's interesting.
Oh, yeah.
That actually was him, and how inaccurate the YouTube comment section can be.
I haven't been on there for a while, so I normally get in there and kind of comment and correct people and thank people for their kind words and all that kind of stuff. But I haven't been on there for a long
It's like
time.
close to a million
Yeah, I was
views.
about to say you're literally a couple of thousand away, I think, from a million. You guys are really.
Oh,
close.
really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Last time I was on there, I think it was like 860,000 views. So
Yeah, it's still really.
you guys should
popular.
totally share it again.
Of course, yeah. No, I shared it on the website and everything. I'm gonna link it down
Awesome.
below.
Oh, that's nice. Oh, excellent. That's excellent. It's not too bad for 18 months or whatever it was when we put it out. August. Oh, wait. We're in August now. So it was August 2013. So it's 2 years. 2 years. Yeah, okay. That's not bad.
Time flies. Doesn't it?
It does fly. It does fly. But yeah, and also I found the Legion kind of really interesting as villains because they had a very particular goal, and they did it in a very brutal way, obviously. But Caesar is just a really fascinating villain, and he's probably alongside House, he's probably the most educated too.
Yeah,
So his whole thing is about using historical kind of guidelines to control people without going back to the bad old ways, which led to the kind of nuclear war. So I just thought the Legion were kind of fascinating. I mean, they're kind of silly to look at, dudes in leather skirts, dressing like Romans with football gear, but they're scary and they're kind of brutal, and I thought they were kind of very interesting.
Especially Lanius, like he's not even just a brilliant tactician, but he's also a strong, man as well. And you could put him at the front of the line and he'd just decimate anyone.
Yeah,
but
that's right.
In terms of the tactical side, that's exactly why Kaiser was like, fight for me, Like,
yeah.
That was the entire reason. So yeah, I love the plot that you decided to pursue.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. I thought it was the right plot.
Yeah, definitely.
Was. What's interesting is that you guys said that you didn't have much of a budget, which is good for this question from the BK23 on Sugar Bomb. He says, I'm wondering how they managed to make so much stuff. The costumes and props are pretty much immaculate and very true to the series. And I noticed that right off the bat. Like, the props you guys used, like, literally looked like you took them straight out of Fallout New Vegas. Like, they were perfect. It was incredible. And I was curious myself how you guys managed to do that.
Well, we did crowdfund the film. I mean, we were crowdfunding the film as we shot it, which is the worst idea ever. Don't do that.
Probably stressful.
Yeah, it was a bit of a ridiculous way to do things. But we did raise about $19,000.
Good stuff.
And so that's $19,000 for a 19-minute film. So you're looking at $1,000 a minute, which is about right. But the last film I made was about $30,000, and that was only 15 minutes long. Mm-hmm. So in filmmaking, 19 grand is nothing, and that's people getting paid very little, next to nothing, and a lot of your money is going just into exactly what you guys said, into the props and costumes. And we had a really excellent guy called John Tolliday from a company called Velvet Worm. He created the Lanius armor with a little bit of help with a lot of help from a woman called Dan Shear. But John was the kind of mastermind who put that armor together. He also created the industrial hand the sword, the sword of the East.
Like, they were perfect.
That helmet, holy crap, that was on point.
yeah. Well, there was a lot of variations on the helmet. It took a while to kind of get it right, but it ended up looking really, really great on camera.
Definitely.
And we had a wonderful production designer called Elena Starcevic, and she made a lot of the costumes, which then had to be all kind of changed and fixed up for safety reasons because, we're doing action stuff, and action is like the hardest thing in the world to shoot. We just, we were just really obsessive about getting a lot of the stuff right. And so whatever budget we had went into the production of props and we shot, studio stuff. Like that tent is all in the studio. And that was really kind of tricky. We had to kind of cut in all the sand and do this, that, and the other. So it was really kind of like really, really challenging, but getting the look right was really important. And we were able to do different things to kind of ensure we got the best look possible, but you can never beat shooting on location. So luckily we had a pretty good location for some of it.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, I look at, I know this is going to sound like a weird comparison at first, but I look at like the Ninja Turtles and how like there's so many different takes of them that each time you see a new variation in Ninja Turtles, from like you look at the old cartoons from back then to like the 2003 animated series to the one on Nickelodeon now, how they changed so much, and anytime you look at them you're like, what the hell, like what have they done, kind of thing. Where with what you did with your fan film was awesome because it was familiar right off the bat. It didn't look like it was like, oh, you can tell that's a fan prop. Like it was believable from the start because it was this just perfect recreation of what we've been playing in real life.
Yeah.
And that was awesome.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, well, I was, getting it to look right was really important to me, considering how the fans felt about it. So, I was glad we kind of got, established what we could.
Yeah. Especially when the community like Fallout, they get very passionate if something is wrong. Even if it's like a fan film, if it doesn't look right or if it doesn't feel like Fallout, or if you veered off too much from what Fallout is, and the fact that you got a very positive reaction from it, it shows that it was a very well executed film. So you done well with that.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I was pretty happy with the response we got. It was a really positive response, and especially through like YouTube. And I mean, whenever people talk about YouTube comments, it's always like, oh god, YouTube, it's like the worst. But for some reason, like I'd say the high 90s percentage of response was super positive. So it was really, really great in that regard.
It's when you do, not to veer off too much here, but it's when you do something like really well, like a good example is obviously either your fan film or like for me and Lone personally, like the interview we did with Brian Delaney, who is the as the male protagonist in Fallout 4. Thank you. And people loved it. We didn't see a single negative thing about it because it was just such a right thing to do. You couldn't go wrong with it. That's what you basically did. So that's when the comments are good. It's just when like you say something like either like in the Fallout sense, you get something slightly wrong or whatever. Regardless, like I always say, like I would not rather be a part of any other community in the Fallout community because it's easily the best. But I didn't want to go off too off track there. YouTube comments just get too bad of a rap, but sometimes they can be. There's like this. It goes in like a rhythm. Sometimes it's like, all right, good. I feel comfortable going in here, and there's times where you're like, I just do not want to read what people have to say today.
Yep. Yeah, it can be pretty rough, and I think it comes down to. I find, if we're talking about moderation and control, not controlling, but kind of guiding your users on particular behaviors. So it's like you can create a community that's kind of positive if you just make it really clear that particular behaviors aren't acceptable. Yeah. And I think you can do that on a YouTube video. It takes a lot of work, and that's the problem with moderation and being like a community supervisor or whatever. But it's worthwhile, I feel, and in time, I think it becomes effective, and I think that's what we did with Lanius.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. As for the next question, this is I think the third week in a row this guy is truly blessed. All Fallout once again. Wow. Yes, a very simple question that I'm sure you've gotten quite a bit, and it's: would you ever consider making another Fallout fan film?
I would do if I was paid cash money.
Yeah, fair enough.
No, and
I think we announced another little short which was going to be like a B-roll film, and it was called Fallout Lanius Crossroads, and it's kind of on the back burner at the moment as we develop something entirely new, because I really, really loved the process of making a fan film and continuing to kind of keep the community. You don't need to keep the community alive. The Fallout community is huge, and it will just keep going.
Yeah.
But you're working on someone else's idea. You're working on someone else's baby, and the gains, whatever they may be, primarily go back to them, as they should be, because they own the IP. That's how it works.
Yeah.
So I think if it was like, hey, we're doing some kind of competition, or we're reaching out to YouTubers and doing a bunch of Fallout shorts or something, say Bethesda was doing this, I'd jump on it. Like, I'd love to go back to that universe and create some content for them. But at this stage, like, I've spent like 2 years working on something that's completely my own. And that's kind of where my emphasis needs to be, because I control it, and whether it succeeds or fails, it's on me.
Yep.
And it's hard. It's going to be really hard to kind of create a whole new community, to create a whole new response to something that's not Fallout.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, that's on me. So, I'd love to return to it, but I think there just have to be like a proper budget and a little bit of a fee or something, just some kind of incentive to come back to the world.
Absolutely, yeah. No, it's tough. Makes sense. Funny enough, the next question comes from yours truly. This is more of an opinion.
Great.
It's more of an opinion than anything. It's like I said, nothing tough. I want to know if you feel that with the success of your fan film, that it's proof that Fallout can be a successful television series at some point in the future. Because a lot of people argue on whether or not this Fallout's all about choice, being a game, because it started as a game.
Yeah.
With your successful adaptation, do you feel like maybe at some point this could be a TV series or a movie or whatever? Even though even not to interrupt you, I forgot to mention though, though Bethesda has clearly stated before that Fallout will remain a game because it is a game. But I just want to know your thoughts on it, because you created one of the best things ever. So. Oh,
thank you. That's very, very kind of you to say.
Of course.
I think the problem is that, like you said it before, is that everyone's got their own version of their own narrative, even though it might be the same kind of story in terms of the main quest. It's always them playing through it. It's their character, or maybe a digital version of themselves, depending on how they create their character.
Yeah.
It could work, because we all know there was that feature film script floating around for a bit.
Really?
Interplay had done it. There was a script in Hollywood. I think the synopsis leaked. Yeah. And it was Vault 13 and a Vaulter, doing everyday stuff and watching kind of like holograms of like what it's like to live on the outside and that kind of thing. So you could do a really traditional kind of like man or woman kind of living in the vault, and then something happens in the vault and you get out there and then you kind of experience the world. But I kind of like that idea coming from creators, and I feel this is kind of how the Hauser brothers are at Rockstar, where they're like, you know what, we don't need to make a big Hollywood film because we've got this huge game. Like, we don't care about Hollywood. We don't care about movies.
Yeah.
We've got this work of art. This is how we talk to our audiences, through a game. So, it could work either way, but I think, I don't know, it's you need like big budgets, and, tonally, how do you do it? Do you want to do it really seriously? Do you want it to be comedic? Like, Fallout means so many things to so many people. I'm not quite sure how it could kind of work, because it'd just be so expensive as well. You'd need like a HBO or someone with like really deep pockets to make it work. You can't do another one of these, like, there's all these kind of like walking shows like The Walking Dead or Fallen Skies or some other alien show where it's just a bunch of people with beards walking around doing stuff. Like, it's
You're so right. You've just summed up those shows. Oh my
god. Revolution, I think, is that the one where the power goes out? Like, there's all these shows where you've got a lot of people with great hair just kind of wandering around in the dark for 52 minutes. And you kind of think, you can't. Yeah, that's right. And it's like post-apoc stuff, I think, is probably a lot more expensive than people think unless you're shooting somewhere in like Eastern Europe where they've got a lot of kind of crazy old architecture. What story would you tell now? Fallout is like three to five different narratives. What story are you going to tell? The traditional vaulter gets out of the vault.
Yeah,
gets involved with super mutants, or do you go back to Mojave, or do you want to do it in Boston because that's better for your brand right now? I don't know. Who knows? Like, part of me feels like they might even do, and I don't know how people would feel about it, but if they wanted to do more narrative stuff, then they might even go to something like Telltale and do a Fallout thing like that.
That's a very good point. Yeah.
But maybe Bethesda won't want to. Well, Bethesda will. If they hired Obsidian, they might go to Telltale. I mean, if Borderlands can do it, there's no reason Fallout can't do it.
Oh yeah.
And I have a feeling that they may want to do that one day, but they haven't done it with any of their they haven't really done it with any of their other IPs. So there hasn't been a point where they've said, "Oh, look, let's do a TV show or whatever." They've done like a few live action ads. I recall the one for Skyrim.
Yeah.
And I have a feeling we might get one for Fallout 4 because of that leak of that poor old VFX artist who was working for Murata.
I think they said that it turned out to be fake, which is funny, but
was it fake?
Pete Hines did say it was fake. I remember him saying
that
in an interview,
okay.
and I remember my mind being blown. I'm like, really? I think parts of it were real. Like Murata Studios, when they started sending out the emails and stuff, that was like, okay, it is real now.
Yeah. Unless they were trying to protect their... Yeah, why would you even respond on it? Or you could send an email just saying, "Look, sorry, that's not true." But when you send a cease and desist, like nothing speaks louder than the Streisand effect. So
damage control.
That's right, damage control. So, but coming back to that whole live action TV series, feature film, I don't know, like games are bigger than cinema, Games speak to people better. People love games more than they do cinema because of the way you can relate to a game. And unless you've got big marketing bucks, which Bethesda kind of does, but then look at the Hollywood system. They can't even get a Halo film up. Like that's one of the biggest gaming IPs ever.
I know.
Because everyone was basically too greedy, and they wanted bigger cuts. They couldn't make it happen with Neil Blomkamp, who's one of the coolest directors on the planet right now. So how are you going to make a Fallout film work? They couldn't get a BioShock film up because
that disappointed me so much.
Again, there's so much risk. Like Hollywood, I mean, there's tremendous risk in games as well. But I think the market works in different ways.
Yes, probably.
And I think a game, has a longer shelf life. Maybe not so much in terms of financial worth, but at least in terms of how you can engage with it. But a film, it's got that box office 3-week period. And you either make your money back or you're dead,
Yeah.
So
what I would like to see personally, though, is similar to what you were alluding to before, Wade, is I like watching fan films. Obviously, you can tell when they have a bit of a budget, things look a bit better. I would like to see, because Bethesda is so open to people just, in a fan film sense, they're open to people using their IP. If Bethesda was to try and say, all right, whoever wants to do a fan film will support you in the budget a little bit, and you can take the ball and run with it. And something like Lanius or even like Nuka Break, if that had received some support from Bethesda, it would have been even more spectacular because Bethesda was behind it. And I think that could be a way to try and get a Fallout fan film or even something tied in with the video games. The fact that it would have Bethesda support as well, I think would actually, get some fans on board, because the publisher and the developer behind the game is also going to be behind this fan series. So I think that'll be the better way to do it. And the fact that it is a fan film would say, all right, well, there are actually fans behind making this film, and not just big Hollywood's, directors and whatever trying to make a quick buck. So I think that would be the better way to go about it.
Yeah.
I agree.
I wonder, we were talking a bit about Telltale and Fallout. The only reason I don't think that's something that would ever work is because Fallout is really not actually, but a Telltale game in the sense where you can make choices and impact the world. But it has actual gameplay in it. Telltale games are always just like a narrative, and that's why I feel like Tales from the Borderlands is so weird, because it's taking what makes Borderlands special and trying to change it. And I feel like with Fallout, you already have that storytelling, or that drive at least for storytelling and choices that you can make to impact people and stuff. But except Fallout has actual gameplay behind it, like shooting and all that stuff, where I feel like it wouldn't be necessary to use a Telltale thing. As for a TV series, I personally think, I like Lone's idea. That would be cool. Other than that, I couldn't think of anything else, because you made some good points, Wade, that of the budget, how they couldn't get Halo or BioShock up, and I didn't even know about that. I didn't know they were trying
BioShock would be a great movie. It would be excellent.
Yeah. Well, you can thank Watchmen for that. and I really like Watchmen, but that was the whole thing of like $100 million plus MA rated film, which is R17, I think, for the States. Just being too violent, too adult, and too expensive. Didn't make the return. That was it. That killed BioShock. You know, they wanted to bring it down to a soft M or whatever.
And there's no way that will work for the BioShock universe.
No.
And I think it's a gritty, gory, dark game, and
adult scenarios, adult
exactly.
themes.
And if you weren't going to tell that story, you'd piss off hardcore fans.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Like,
and it's muted storytelling as well. It's like it's not authentic.
Yeah, so, exactly.
You know,
and also as well, it'd be interesting to try and have a movie where I don't know if they'd make the protagonist silent or not, but just in terms of how that would work. And I'm not sure which direction the director wanted to go initially. Like, were they going to have a voice protagonist or whatever? Who knows?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Interesting.
Awesome.
I feel like that's my thing. Lone has excellent. I say interesting a lot.
Excellent. Love it.
So the final question comes from Jariah Bannon on Twitter, and he asks, well, this one actually doesn't have to do with the fan film, so everyone can kick back and breathe for a second. He asks, how is everyone in the podcast celebrating Fallout 4 other than just playing it when it comes out? So is anyone doing anything unique to celebrate the finally the launch of Fallout 4? Does anyone have any plans?
Yeah, shut
probably
myself
day
in
off.
my room and not talk to anyone.
Day off work, I think, and maybe, I don't know, do something. It'd be nice to kind of have like a Fallout-y meal, and I don't mean eating a gecko. I mean, like, I don't know, some kind of American-style meal, and then kick back with a couple of drinks and
actually that's a great idea, Wade. How about we just drink some scotch, smoke some cigars, and just listen to some 40s 50s music.
Oh yeah, in terms of celebration, yeah, but that's my Saturday night every night, so I don't need Fallout 4 to do that. That's me.
That's excellent.
That's my Saturday nights. Yeah, definitely something special. Like I think I need the day off work. I definitely want to take the day off work and just play the game all day.
Yeah. For me, it's gonna be kind of like a ritual. Like, usually I play the game at midnight until I'm so tired I can't comprehend a fucking thing, and then I'll go to bed, wake up, play the game. I think for Fallout 4, like, once I get it, I want to have like a good night's rest beforehand, and then I want to get up, have a nice breakfast, as if I'm getting ready for like school or like an interview or something. But I'm gonna get up, take a shower, eat, have some coffee. And I'm just going to sit down in my chair. I'm just going to kick back and just kind of embrace every second in the beginning before I get into that compulsive, I got to do everything, man. Here we go. And I get all hyped up. That's kind of how I'm going to do it.
Is it going to be like a rainy day? So I'll leave my window open, listen to the rain drop, and just play.
I love the rain, dude. I feel like that's a gamer thing because no one else shares my love for the rain.
I love it.
Yeah, great.
Matty, I want to slide in and ask a question of Wade because So I know that I've seen you've been tweeting out about a video game that you've been making. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Tell us a bit more about that.
Well, basically, for the last 2 years, I've been working on an original IP, which we're going to announce this year, and I'll hopefully be back right on this podcast to talk more about it if you'll have me.
Of course, anytime.
And it's basically it combines elements of Fallout with Pokemon with a 90s attitude.
Sweet.
So
you
it's
just
kind
of so hard.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah. So it's basically it's the game. We've been working with this really, really talented guy called Jacob Janerka. You should look up a game he did. PewDiePie actually played his game. It's a game called Paradigm. And he's been working on the kind of proof of concept this week. So we're doing it's very 90s. So it's 90s kind of art. And the game's about these kind of the world's been hit by this big terraforming vessel was kind of destroyed over Earth, and all these creatures fell to Earth. So it's now a post-apocalyptic world, but it's all filled with these monsters. I was going to say the name of them, but then I would have given it away. I won't do that yet. But it's kind of
cut it out if you slip. but
no, it's fine, and so it's filled with these kind of like monsters, and so it's the whole big theme is we follow these three kids kind of adventuring across this really dangerous but really exciting world filled with monsters. Awesome. And the big theme is like the world you knew, is gone, like, and how kids are more accepting of that change, like. And it's just really, really exciting. So we're working with like 2D kind of pixel art, but it's really quite detailed and beautiful.
Sounds awesome.
And the game itself, I think it's going to be kind of like a tactical side-scrolling kind of action game, but you can kind of like choose different sites. They all have different difficulties, and it's a bit more open world. I'm just trying to work out what I can and can't say, but definitely keep going back to that whole like Fallout meets Pokemon. So it's post-apocalyptic, but then there's creatures. So you can, like, one of the characters' special ability is that he can talk to creatures, and so you always can change up which creatures you have in your party. And it's a really gorgeous, like, 2 years I haven't.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be like I just love the idea because I just loved going back to my childhood and exploring the kind of stuff I loved as a kid. And I've just spent 2 years, man, just like working on this idea alone. And now I'm finally starting to see art. I'm finally see, like, we've done some like mock-up screenshots, like animated screenshots, to see how the game looks, and it's really, really beautiful. So if you like anything from the kind of 90s, if you like post-apocalyptic stuff, and if you like Pokemon, I think it's gonna be kind of fun.
Fuck yeah, like Pokemon, post-apocalyptic. What more do you want in life?
I was gonna say, I was born in the 90s. Like, everyone here loves Fallout, and I grew up with Pokemon, as did Lone, so I'm on board.
Yeah.
Great.
I have my own question. I have my own question.
Sure.
Now.
Sure.
So, like, what do you do in the sense of this game development, like programming, writing, like what's your...
I'm just the creator and designer, so I'm talentless. And I don't have, like, because that's the trick to being a film director. You basically just surround yourself with people smarter than you, better than you. So, and as a producer, so we're basically, it's really, really early days. So we've just been putting together bits and pieces, because like the whole thing is what I'm calling like a horizontal development approach. So we've been developing a TV show, and then the video game, and then like a toy line. So it's all kind of going together. Wow. We're going to launch the whole thing together. And it's kind of like, I like the idea of it being kind of a crowdsourced IP, like you're saying to people, do you like this idea? Do you not like this idea? And taking on a little bit of advice, not a lot of advice, because you then lose the authenticity of the concept.
Yes.
But definitely like building a community, because, when we launch, it's just going to be like very early days, and I want to build a community. I want feedback from fans, whether they're Fallout fans or Pokemon fans or whatever they are. And or both. Or both, and just kind of just build that sense of community. And so we can then kind of take it to people and try to get more investment, because we're living in an age now where, like, you're not having the kind of closed room meetings to make a TV show or a game happen anymore. A lot of it's like, oh, great, you're doing this. How many likes do you have on Facebook? What's your community like? Do you have forums? Do you have a lot of Twitter followers? Do Twitch streamers talk about you? Like, that's the conversation now. It's not like, hey, great idea, let's write a check. It's like, no, like, do you have an audience built in?
Yeah.
So I'm fine to do that. I enjoy doing that with Fallout, and like, it goes back to what I was talking about before. Is like, it's easier to do it Fallout because that's like nearly a 20-year-old brand now, and I'm about to create my own. So, however, tell your fans far and wide that when we launch, probably around Halloween, just to come say hello and check it out and give us your feedback, because it'll be really exciting, and I think people are going to love it. And I mean, I love it, and it's not like, it won't be super gritty as well. It's actually aimed for kind of younger people to be a bit more accessible, and I want a big market. But like, when I think about like content aimed at younger people, I'm not thinking about really little kids. I'm talking about like Avatar: The Last Airbender, Legend of Korra, a lot of that kind of stuff that like it's content all
ages.
Yeah, all ages, but like, like Avatar deals with some fantastic themes, and it's not stupid television. It's actually really clever, really heartfelt. Legend of Korra is older again. That's more teenagers, because it deals with teenage kind of concepts. So that's what I think about in terms of kids television, quote unquote. And that's what we're kind of doing with this. So it won't be like super gory, but because again, it's based on stuff out of the 90s, kid stuff out of the 90s, where my favorite filmmakers were, Spielberg and George Lucas and Joe Dante and Robert Zemeckis. They were making Back to the Future and Indiana Jones and the first Star Wars films. Like, that's the kind of degree of intensity. I mean, those are kids' properties, and you still have Nazis with their faces getting melted off and that kind of thing. Like, we may not be doing that, but like that's what I'm inspired by. So, the big theme is like it should be a little bit scary, but it should be exciting. It shouldn't be dumbed down, but it should be accessible and colorful and fun.
Out of curiosity, then, are you guys like? I'm assuming this is kind of being considered like an indie game. Then that's what
it probably will be an indie game unless we get picked up by some huge publisher. It'll be an indie game for a while, I'd say.
Okay, so that's why I wanted to know, because I was wondering if you guys were gonna like. Talk to Ivy at Xbox, or I know PlayStation has like an indie program and stuff, and I was just wondering if you guys were thinking about reaching out to them.
Yeah, we might do. I also like there's a number of people around. Like there's those guys, they're the really big guys, and then there's also people like Devolver, and Devolver
they're good.
They have the coolest games. Like there's 3 games at the moment I'm super just kind of obsessed with, which is Eater, which is like the Souls-alike Viking game, Mother Russia Bleeds, which is a sprawling, side-scrolling brawler, super violent. Like Lone will know this. It won't make it into Australia because it's too violent.
Nope.
And a really beautiful game from some Spanish guys called 4Addict called Crossing Souls. And Crossing Souls is literally like an 80s adventure game where you play a bunch of kids in like Southern California who find a device that can like talk to the dead or bring up ghosts. And you should find those games, man. They're all absolutely gorgeous. And they're all like pixel art, but they're all variations on pixel art. Very, very high quality. So like someone like Devolver could be cool because they're like right behind their artists.
Yeah.
They back you up, they're very, very cool. But I mean, I imagine, people might choose other people over Devolver because Xbox and Sony would be like, here's money.
Mm-hmm. It's better to like make what you want to make, rather.
Well, that's right. Yeah, it'd be interesting to know. I mean, like it's very interesting. It's kind of a battle. It's a battle for indies now at the moment, and it seems kind of exciting because like even someone like Microsoft seems to be spending a lot of time with indies. Like you look at the amount of time they gave the guys who are doing Cuphead, and that's like years, it's like 2 or 3 years of development, and they haven't.
That game looks awesome too. That way.
I know, it looks absolutely incredible, and it really seems like they're just like, it's a softly approach. They're kind of going, look, you know what, work on it, do it when it, it has to be right, which doesn't sound like Microsoft at all. Mm-hmm. So, it's a really weird space to be in. Mind you, that's just me kind of assuming that's the case. I don't know if that is the case.
But no, definitely, we hope that your game takes off, and I myself and probably Matty as well will be more than happy to cover the game once it's released.
Sure. Oh yeah,
and stream it.
I'd love to see. I mean, it's a while away, but I'd love even like your feedback on the first screens that drop and
definitely
all the content art that'll drop this year, hopefully around Halloween.
Yeah, cool. Well, let us know. Keep us in the loop, and we'll be more than happy to.
Absolutely, thank you.
Sweet.
All right. Unless we have any more questions here, I don't have any. I don't know if you have any more.
I think that we covered it all.
Yeah, sweet.
All right, cool. Well, Wade, thank you so much for coming on. This has been awesome.
Thank you.
All different dimensions of discussion
here.
Thanks
a lot, Lo.
Whether your fan film or your game or just in general, it's been great to have you.
I've loved it. Thanks very much, and keep up the great work. And I promise I will join Sugar Bombed.
Okay. Oh, you saw that? You saw that. I wasn't gonna say anything. I'm not about like hassling, but that's
awesome. Brilliant.
Well, would you like to give him the little speech?
Yep. So Wade, I don't know if you know this. Every week we let the guest end the podcast, even though it kind of puts you on the spot. But Matty and I are just gonna stop talking, and you're gonna finish the podcast however you feel is fitting. So take it away, and again, thank you for joining us.
Oh, great. Well, thanks very much for having me on, Maddie and Lone, and I definitely think you should take a look at the Sugar Bomb community and definitely look at what these guys are doing in the Fallout community. It's a really positive community. I feel pretty strongly about it the more I learn about it, and definitely pay attention to what I'll be doing later in the year. Feel free to say hello. I'm on Twitter at WadeKSavage. and just be good to one another. That's all. Be good. Bye.